Well, it's the moment we've all been waiting for, not just from today, but over the last few weeks. It is grand final time. Wildcard versus the Pittsburgh Knights. And of course, as is grand final time, we need a grand host of talent. All the boys are in here, and even one of the older ones who has gone all Hollywood on us. Come on in. Firstly, before I throw to any of you guys, because I mean, who knows what's going to happen when everyone starts talking. Dev, how have you seen the playoffs so far from your perspective?
Very exciting, very unpredictable. My predictions have kind of been blown out of the water, particularly with that last game. I did not think that I would be in the minority guessing a Kami win, but apparently I was. I thought I was right, you know, map 1, first half of map 2, but then Knights just came in and was like, good Knights.
That is horrible analysis. What? We sent this guy overseas? No, I'm just kidding. Obviously, Manic, Raven, you guys would have been watching on from the sidelines, seeing that lower bracket final, since you guys are going to be casting the grand final. Raven, what was your thoughts on the performance from the Pittsburgh Knights?
Look, I'm going to put it out there. I called the consulate thing that Dino mentioned, that they felt like it was a lost cause from the start, and that they were kind of just keeping it in the pocket maybe for a bit later. It did not look like the Knights at all. I was like, what is this team? They look completely different. And then once it got to Coastline and they got rolling, boy, they actually looked really scary. It's got me super amped up for this grand final.
Manic?
I had pretty much prepped for Okami after the first map. I literally had to go through in the old textbook here. You'll see we had Okami ready for the entire matchup, right? And even into Coastline, you know, the first 4 rounds, that looked really dangerous. And I just didn't see a way for Knights to get back into that. You know, Raven and I were sitting in a Discord chat together, and we're like, this does not look like the Knights we saw all season. And then literally on a dime, they just went 6 rounds straight and literally just looked like a completely different team. So I don't know, man. That was a really strange lower bracket grand final that's kind of set us up for now.
It certainly has. And then the last one, my good old co-caster, Guz. Well, I mean, we just casted the match, I guess. So what's your thoughts on, I guess, the grand final matchup, looking a bit more ahead?
Yeah, obviously it's difficult to look past wildcard. It always is, but Knights have put a big statement on the board. They literally just crushed Okami on that third map. Not even a contest at all, really. 7-1 in the end. So the Knights have put their best case forward. Whether or not that's enough to take down wildcard, who knows? Maybe not, but we'll have to wait and see.
You certainly will have to wait and see, of course, though, guys. It's been amazing Oceanic Nationals over the 3 days. Day 1, 2, now, of course, day 3. Throwing it back over to Dev, I just want to ask, because it's been a while since you've casted Oceanic Siege, at least since 6 Masters, which was quite a few months ago. From a spectator's point of view, what's something that has maybe stood out for you? Not just, I guess, over the playoffs, but even the regular season.
I mean, I guess there's a lot of things I could touch on in terms of results. It's probably what you're looking at more so, but I just want to point out this season, you guys have done a bang-up job production as well. Really enjoyed. I know a lot of people who've been watching it as well. It's just night and day. You guys have made some huge improvements, so credit to all you guys. But in terms of results, I guess it's just good to see that maybe some of these teams that were on an upwards trajectory like Knights, they've managed to continue that. Of course, they did really, really well in the 6th major, and I was hoping that that wasn't just like a strike of lightning, and it has come to show that they're definitely one of those top teams. And also, it's very competitive. Like a team like Rhythm, who we definitely counted out after 6 Masters, they took 3 teams to overtime, 3 of the best teams to overtime. And you've got a team like LFO that looked like they were, you know, guaranteed relegation. They almost beat Okami here in the playoffs. So I think that's my big takeaway, is how competitive and how close all of these teams have been, regardless of whether they've got organization, regardless of whether they've got pilot program, regardless of how long they've been together. They're all here and very, very much to play.
Yeah, certainly. It's been fascinating to watch. And of course, you know, the relegations as well to come. It's going to be interesting. It was unfortunate for Ferox that they dropped down there. They're not part of the playoffs. So yeah, you're right. It's been a very, very close affair. Although one team that has probably separated themselves from the rest of the pack, rightfully so, Wildcard. We're going to hone in and focus on them now for the grand final matchup. Roster aside, Manic, I'm going to throw it over to you. I feel like I just spin the wheel and just pick one of you. Give us your take on how you've seen Wildcard, I guess, dominate, especially after they did have a bit of a slow start to the season.
Yeah, look, I think it's wildcard season has been quite interesting. You know, you look back at their earlier matches, they lost to Noble, which straight out of the bat in the second matchup of their Oceanic National regular season kind of wasn't warning signs necessarily, but with that new addition of Vinny replacing Ethan, I think there were a lot of questions surrounding what wildcard we're going to be able to do. You know, we've always looked to Ethan to really be the shining light, the big fragger, the big name that comes up in those big moments. And look, I think that we've spoken a lot over the course of the season at what has been, I would say, shaky. You know, the 8-7 against Ferox, the 8-6 against Rhythm, teams that we thought they would just run over, not necessarily having a good run in. So I think that without playoffs, I was kind of expecting the maps that they were going to be playing to be a lot closer than what they have been, because they have really shone on the back end, especially heading into what has been the past 2 days. And I think that it's just credit to a roster that we have really held as a titan of ANZ for so long.
I'll throw you under the bus next, Raven. Just the thoughts, I guess, of Wildcard's performances so far in the playoffs specifically, leaving the regular season behind. They definitely have stepped it up a notch in the playoffs, and they look as ever threatening as they ever have in the past.
Absolutely. I mean, their absolute dominant performance against the Knights is quite a scary thing. And I mean, we're going to get to see the replay of that, obviously, for the grand final. But it just felt like no matter what the Knights were doing in that series, Wildcard were there to capitalize. And I think what's really scary is on top of the stars that we've seen step up during the regular season, such as Geo in particular, Diesel, I feel like, has stepped up his form in playoffs. I mean, yesterday, he had an absolute banger of a series. He was just nailing his retakes on Villa in particular against the Knights. I think he only ended up dying 3 times in that entire map. Just absolutely crazy, and that's definitely something you want to be scared of if you, as an opponent, or not want to be scared of, but you will be scared, is that when Diesel is in that kind of form as an anchor player, it's really tough to come up against.
Well, you should know you're next in line now, Gus, I guess, because I've gone through everyone else. So it's a pretty easy knowledge there. Wildcard have been amazing, obviously, in the playoffs, but there was one match that it did get a bit close. It was Villa against Akami, 8-7. Now, they're obviously not going to be playing Akami in the grand final, but was there maybe, I guess, a sign of a bit of a weakness there for Wildcard even in the playoffs?
Yeah, when I look at Wildcard, I get a sense of deja vu from Six Masters. We saw a flawless run for them through the bracket in that playoff series, and so far it's been flawless for them. Yes, it got very close against Okami, but outside of that, has there really been a genuine threat against Wildcard? There's a real possibility that they do a repeat here. They might have another flawless playoffs bracket, which in any national league is a very big performance and a very big achievement, if you would, for any team. So look, is there any weaknesses? Sure, any team has weaknesses. Any team can be beaten, right? But will Knights be able to capitalize on that? That's the question.
It certainly is a question we'll have to see get posed later on. In terms of focusing on one of the players, for me, if it was to be anyone, it would have been Geo, but we're going to look at some of the highlights from Diesel throughout this season of Oceanic Nationals. And Dev, he's been a part of this team for quite a while now and is still ever as important.
Yeah, very much so. He's really become the new heart and core of this roster, especially as Geo's Ethan's now been replaced, of course, by Vinny. And Diesel's just he's got such a brain for the game, such a great support player. But as from these replays, we can also see some huge moments of mechanical skills, some smart plays that are closing out these rounds for Wildcard. He is the backbone of that roster. He is that core support player, but he can also step it up when needed. And when you chuck him on someone like the Ace with this AK, when you chuck him on someone like Maverick, you just know that he's going to be stepping up in the fragging department as well. So a player that I personally have been a huge fan of for a long time and has certainly stepped it up this season once again. Actually, fun fact, he's got the most plants of anyone throughout the entire regular season of Oceanic Nationals at 9, topping Sushi in 6. So he's definitely doing his job as a support, but as we can see from the highlights, also in the fragging department as well.
Little spinning of the wheel here. I'm going to land on Raven. Raven, who's been your most standout player for Wildcard this season?
I think it's still going to be Geo, just in general. I think throughout the regular season, he was very consistent for them and had some really big performances. And when you think about the context of losing Ethan, that's what they needed. They needed someone else to be able to fill those kinds of shoes where they have those big games where they just absolutely frag out and can be that kind of consistent player. So Geo really filled that for them. And I think that was really critical for ensuring that they had continued success coming into Oceanic Nationals. But it's hard to not count some of these other players, and that's the scary thing about Wildcard is they're a very well-rounded team. Vincia had some matches where he went absolutely insane. Pat, Diesel, I've forgotten somebody. Imarin in particular actually also had some really big games. So, look, I think it's a scary thing. Geo, though, if he's firing, it's hard to see Wildcard be beaten, to be honest with you.
Well, guys, what about the Vinny storyline in a grand final now?
Yeah, well, I mean, Vinny only just joined this season, joined this roster this season. Of course, he jumped ship across from Noble and filled that gap of Ethan. There are still question marks as to whether or not he actually truly filled those shoes, or whether that role may have transferred over to Geo, for example, who is, of course, now one of the top fraggers in the region and by far the top fragger for Wildcard. But when you pose the question, who was the best team for Wildcard, I find that such a hard question to answer. Right? Sure, Geo statistically is the best player, but if it wasn't for the likes of Diesel, who we highlighted in that support role, Ethan, Emerin rather, as well, on that flex as well, like, would Geo actually be facilitated to be in this position? Probably not. And that's the strength that Wildcard have. The team relies on one another and not necessarily these individual players, which for the Knights, for example, they've been leaning heavily into Hayward, and they can't just do that against Wildcard.
Yeah, last little tidbit here. I'll get you on the floor, Manic, and you can speak about whatever you want as long as it's Wildcard related.
Look, I think that we'll highlight Pat in particular, because I know we've spoken about Emo, we've spoken about Geo and the likes of that. But I think Pat, yesterday for me, kind of came into light a lot more on the match with Villa. I think that, you know, him and Diesel, for example, play incredibly well side by side. We saw them anchoring on side a couple of times there. And I just think, just to reiterate what Guz is saying, the facilitation of these players, like, you know, for example, Diesel and Pat probably are the best players to highlight there, because they don't necessarily have the biggest impact when you're looking at the round as a whole in terms of the frag department, even though Diesel may have gone mental. But I do think that what this team really is allowed to do, it is facilitated by those support players, by the players who are willing to risk, let's say, the bigger plays and leave it onto the shoulders of someone like Geo. So I think that it's something that Wildcard have done for such a long time and are continuing to do, by the way, through 3 roster changes this year alone. So I think that that is a huge credit to what they've been able to achieve in both Six Masters and now Oceanic Nationals.
Certainly a huge credit. Certainly they're going to be very, very difficult to stop. They're the favorites for a reason. But let's now turn our focus and turn our attention to their opponents. Of course, the Pittsburgh Knights, a bit of an up and down sort of season, Dev Marta. They had a good start, had a few ups and downs through the middle of it. And while by the end of it, they've made their way to a grand final, even after losing Strider.
Yeah, very much so. Strider, another really old guard player here in ANZ, been around for such a long time. And you look at this roster now, and a lot of this is still very much young and upcoming talent. Like, yes, Dino and Hayward have now been in Pro League for a few seasons now, but I remember it didn't seem like that long ago when they were turning 18, making their debut. And we've got this young talent like Juicy, Josh, and Sage most recently as well, who have certainly made a splash here. And the thing that I love about this team is, despite being filled with young talent, they play like such a mature team. They know exactly what buttons they can push to really expose the weaknesses of their opponent. And yes, they've had some, you know, matches that maybe have gone a bit closer than they should have, and some disappointing losses. I'd highlight the 7-8 against Okami in the regular season. Also, they got dumpstered by Wildcard in the regular season, plus in the playoffs. But these guys have shown us so much, especially with that dominant performance against Okami in the lower bracket final just now. There is so much potential here, and they're definitely tapping into it.
Well, there is, certainly is. Guz, though, I mean, we did see, of course, a bit of a weakness highlighted on Consulate in that loss to Akami in that first map. Not only that, but even going all the way back to the upper bracket round 2, it was an 8-6 win over LFO. They got pushed there. Coastline wasn't easy against LFO either. Is this the difference between Wildcard and Pittsburgh? Is that Pittsburgh still have these weaknesses?
Well, we talk about map pools for teams quite often, particularly in these longer series. The grand final is a best of 5 1 map advantage. That means that there's a maximum of 4 out of the 7 maps in the pool that will be played. So the Knights need a deep pool. They cannot rely on 1 or 2 good maps. That just isn't good enough for them. They need to have at least 3 wins and can't drop more than 2 maps, otherwise they're going to lose. So it's going to be interesting to see how deep their map pool truly is and how many strats they're actually saving. I know Dino said on content that they were saving strats. I'm still not buying it. I don't think we're going to be heading there, but who knows? Maybe he actually is telling the truth and we could see Consulate play.
Raven, what are your thoughts here? Pittsburgh, are they saving strats? Have they got something maybe deep into the strat book that can pull out to catch Wildcard off guard?
Mate, I'm glad you went to me next because I am fully bought into this bait idea from Dino. I just think this is some Fabian level baiting that the Knights have done. I think they actually have some pretty well prepped maps that they have presented otherwise, Consulate being one of them. And then even Villa last night, I felt like they just decided same thing, you know, just maybe fall into security here, Wildcard, or feel comfortable that they know how to counter Knights on these maps. It's no problem, we'll leave them up. And when you do have the disadvantage in that BO5, you want a trick or two up your sleeve to try and equalize that. So the Knights might have just done that big bait so that they can get the first map in particular, for example, and then it's even grounds from that point on. So I really do. I'm believing in this bait idea.
Manic, are they bluffing though? What if there's a chance that they actually don't have anything up their sleeves and they're about to walk into a slaughter fest?
Look, I listened to Raven for about 3 maps straight there. Say no, they're they're hiding it. They're hiding it. They're keeping it in the back pocket. So unfortunately, I've been forced to buy into this idea that they will be able to pull out something on Consulate. And look, if you look at it from the grand scheme of things, I mean, that is an outrageous call to make, an extremely dangerous one if you're trying to hold it for the grand final, because you potentially don't even make it there if Akami actually turn up the heat on Coastline in that second half. But there is a world in which I can see this happening. I think that if you go back and you watch the game of Knights on Consulate, it was pretty woeful as as games have been. I think that is probably one of the most one-sided maps I have seen in Oceanic Nationals. And so I'm really hoping for their sake that it was all just a bait and Wildcard picked Consulate first and then all of a sudden they're in with a good look. Because at the end of the day, there is definitely a case to be made that they need a gimmick in this. They actually, and I'm being serious when I say that, they need a gimmick. They need a pocket strat, and potentially a pocket strat maybe showing Consulate twice, getting absolutely spanked on it. That may be something that they're looking to do.
Yeah. Well, something that is not a gimmick is Pittsburgh Knights' best player. Now, Dev, I don't even have to say his name. You know who he is. Talk us through why he's the best player for Knights.
Yeah, well, it's funny. I mean, if you look at the MVPs overall of the whole season in each different category, like KOST, rating, KD, it's all dominated by Wildcard, except for 2 categories, which Hayward claims as his own. He is the king of entries and the king of clutches. And you can just see the entry kills that he's collecting, the opening engagements that he's taking his way. He is just a nuts player. The mechanics on this man, the micro decision making when it comes to gunfights, when to pick. Look at these flicks that he manages to pull off. You can never count him out in a gunfight. There's him giving Diesel a taste of his own medicine. And yeah, Hayward just been such a nuts player forever, and definitely that kind of the biggest tooth, I guess you could say, in Knights' giant maw that is ready to clinch down.
Raven, though, who needs to step up to join Hayward and be that star player in a grand final series?
Yeah, actually, I think it's obviously a bit of all of them because, as we were saying, Wildcard have a very well-rounded team. That's what makes them so good. I think the Knights have to compete that way, but someone that has been missing a little bit in playoffs up until maybe the Akami series was Dino. I remember last night he was just absolutely having a shocker, and he's been quite an influential player in the past for the Knights. He's often a backup for Hayward, as is Josh, who's also been a very consistent player for the Knights. So I would say Josh and Dino do need to kind of be in this game on top of Hayward because he can't do all the heavy lifting himself. And they're up against some sharp aimers on Wildcard. We've already talked about Geo, for example. So Hayward needs that backup. It needs to come from the other sharpshooters on the team. And I would really consider Dino and Josh to be the other 2 in that category.
Guz, one that has been standing up throughout this season is season for the Pittsburgh Knights, now heading into a grand final. Do you sense that he's going to be able to step up to the occasion and have a bit of an impact?
Yeah, that's the question, right? Players sometimes do struggle under the pressure, and there's no more pressure at this sort of level than a grand final, right? Against Wildcard, the best team by far in the region. So will he be able to step up and support the likes of Hayward, who do need that support? Another player as well that I want to mention actually is Juicy. I highlighted him in the pre-show, and my notes, in fact, literally just say, fantastic support player, does his job. And he did his job so well against Okabe. If you weren't watching, he just smashed them with the Montang. It was insane. He was just walking through their defense and causing so many issues. If he can get in the face of Wildcard a little bit and try and disrupt a team that loves to be super structured and loves everything to be in place, just having him as this wild pocket strat might work out. And if he is consistent like he was this afternoon against Wildcard, he could be a real threat.
Manny, give us your thoughts, I guess, on the roster surrounding Hayward. We know Hayward's going to show up. We know he's a big piece of the puzzle, but it's the support players. It's the other guys on the team that need to stand up in this grand final if they're going to have any chance.
Yeah, and I think that you can't really cut it any other way. It has to be the entire team stepping up at this point. You know, we can look to Hayward to have a big performance, you know, potentially look to potentially, maybe I'll say it a couple more times, open the game up and give them a look in with rounds potentially they don't, oh my God, I've done it again, that they don't actually have. It's now my favorite word. But I will just say, potentially, I will say this. Sage has come in to this level of gameplay and he has taken it in his stride, which is funny as Strider is the player that he was replacing, but he has really stepped up. And I think that he could be attributed to some of the earlier games, especially when, you know, you are looking at those roster changes potentially being far out something that shakes things up. This is the problem, right? Because I'm trying to sell that Knights can come back in this. The biggest concern I have is Wildcard are just heads and shoulders better than any team we have in this region when it comes to a best of 3 or best of 5 series. And if you don't believe me, here's a very quick stat. 15 maps they have played in best of 3 or best of 5 styles. They've only lost 1, and that was the Pittsburgh Knights in the major of last year. So that is the context and why I continue to say potentially, because Knights are going to have to step up and play insanely good in this best of 5 series that is already defaulted into the favor of Wildcard.
Yes, thank you very much, Manik. I potentially thought that would never end. Let's turn our attention over, I guess, to the maps. We'll go to you, Dev. Obviously, best of 5 map pool, very important, and we all know Wildcard's got a very strong one.
Yeah, very much so, and I'm glad that, Rob, you're back, because you mentioned it. The only map that these guys have dropped in a best of 5 series was actually 2 Knights recently in the 6 major August, and that was Oregon. Admittedly, I don't think Wildcard were expecting that to come through. I don't think they actually knew exactly what the veto system was, because it was pick ban rather than ban pick. And historically, Wildcard are a team that have this really big map pool, but they often have like an insta ban. It used to be border back when that was in the case. Everyone remembers. I know if you like to Alex, oh, we're playing border. He's like, sorry, what's that? Never heard of that map before. But now Wildcard, like you look at their stats over the last little while, and yeah, they dropped 1 map to Noble. It was a really close one on Cafe during the regular season, and that ended up being their ban last time they played against Pittsburgh Knights in the semis, so or in the upper bracket final. So I guess you could say that Wildcard, they kind of trump Knights here in terms of almost every single map. And that's why I totally agree with what you were saying, Raven. I definitely think Knights have to come out here and do 2 things. 1, have some good pocket strats, some good counter strats, bait them into the consulate pick. I love all that good stuff. And secondarily, when it comes to something you said, guys, when it comes to those more structured maps where Wildcard knows how to play, just Knights, bring all that fire and just make it so Wildcard cannot play structured. That's what I think you got to do.
Yeah. Was there anything you agreed with, Manik? Because you mentioned Cuz and Raven. No? Okay, cool. Raven, map predictions. You pretty much hell bent on that. We're going to see Consulate at some point. What else are we going to see?
Yeah, look, I think we'll definitely see Villa again. That's another one where I feel like it was a bit of a bait in that upper bracket final as well. So I think Villa and Consulate are certainties. Clubhouse, I'm sure, is going to make it through the veto as well. They're the main 3 that I think we'll see. There is a bit of a up in the air, I guess, with what we might not see. I'm expecting Oregon won't get through. That being said, Wildcard did have a big performance against Okami on it in the end of the regular season there. It was 7-5. So they certainly can play it now. And like Dev said, I felt like they were surprised about it in the August major. And while Oregon was also a lot newer to the map pool at that stage, it hadn't been developed as competitively as it has been now. So I dare say there's not really a map in Wildcard's map pool at the moment that is just a total insta-ban like it used to be back in the day.
Obviously, Raven and Dev covered a lot of it there. Guys, have you got anything that you want to include?
I mean, when I look at the map pool, see, obviously, that wildcard's got a deep one, but I genuinely believe that Oregon will be their insta-ban, right? You look at it, it's appeared twice since it's been in the map pool, and the times that it hasn't, 5 of those occasions, they were the one that banned the map, which suggests to me that they're not overly comfortable on Oregon. Maybe you could make the argument that they're hiding it. Don't think they'll be willing to reveal that here in this final. They'll probably save that for the major if they really have to. So Oregon, for me, will be wildcards insta-ban. If we want to talk about the Knights, 2 maps probably come to mind for me. Theme Park is one that's, again, only appeared twice since it's been in the pool for them. Banned out 4 times by them, so maybe that's not a very comfortable map. And look, I'm not buying Dino. Consulate has to be a very close second for an insta-ban. If they do go to Consulate, if they play it the way they did against Okami, they're going to get absolutely slaughtered. So I really do hope that Dino was joking. Or actually was serious that they baited it, yeah.
Manic, do you potentially have anything to add here before we reveal the maps?
Potentially. Theme park, that's all I want to see. I don't care what happens. I just want to see theme park, man. Let's just, I'm more than happy to get into it. You guys have covered more than enough. I think at this point, the only thing I'm going to add is yes.
Yes.
Let's go.
Well, let's go and have a look at the bans first and foremost. And Consulate is off the board. There are no tricks. There are no bait and switches. Wildcard will also take out Cafe. Raven, I'm going to throw it straight to you. What do you think of this?
Double bait.
I am utterly devastated to the core, Yogs. I wanted to see Consulate replayed. I wanted this to be a big bait. Maybe it still is, you know, maybe it is still a bait for the major. And this is just like an extra layer on top of it. But no, I think, look, either way, bait or not, probably good to take it away because Wildcard have proven that they are strong on the map. If you want to go back to the regular season match they played against Elevate, they dismantled Elevate on Consulate also. So it's definitely a strong one to take away from Wildcard. I think at the end of the day, it's a good choice regardless.
Well, let's have a look at the first 2 picks. And as they are revealed, Dev, Marta, I want your thoughts because we're seeing Coastline picked by Knights and Clubhouse picked by Wildcard.
I just will, before I touch on the picks, 2 cents. The Consulate ban from Knights, it was a bait because I'm like, why would Dino, if say in his interview before the map veto has been done that they wanted to play Consulate, I mean, like, why would you do that anyway? It's the triple bait, the quadruple bluff, whatever it is. Coastline, well, we saw how good Knights can be on that map earlier today against Okami with that crazy 6 attacks in a row, I think it was. And Wildcard, they beat Pittsburgh Knights on Clubhouse during the regular season, so this seems pretty predictable for me. I think this is a set of maps where both of these teams would be expecting to go first up. So I think this is pretty good territory. If I recall correctly, last time these 2 played each other in the semis or the upper bracket final, Coastline was the decider map, if I recall, or maybe that was against Okami. So, you know, Wildcard are no strangers to Coastline. I think that, again, this is going to be pretty good maps for both teams, but I wouldn't be surprised if Clubhouse does lean more so towards Wildcard.
Guys, we just saw, obviously, Knights on Coastline, and after a bit of a slow start, they obviously stormed home against Okami. Is it fair to say this is really going to be their best shot of getting a map against Wildcard?
Yeah, well, we mentioned that for the Knights to be a decent chance in this best of 5, they need to bring out some pocket strats and try to make Wildcard feel uncomfortable. And Coastline is a map where if you play it right, you can make your opponent, particularly on the defense, feel extremely uncomfortable. So we don't know what sides they'll be starting on. Knights, of course, picked it, so I'm assuming Wildcard get to pick sides, which means that the Knights might have to put up with that defense in the first half. But when the Knights are on the attack, it's imperative that they just go berserk here, throw everything they have at Wildcard to make them feel uncomfortable. And if they can take that map pick, that then evens out the series 1 apiece. And then it really comes down to, you know, Clubhouse, which will go Wildcard, and then it could go back and forth from there.
Well, Manic, I'm not going to bully you here. I'm sorry. I love you. I'm a very kind host. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you the floor here as we unveil the next 3 picks. You can discuss the bans and all of the picks as they are unveiled right now.
I mean, to be honest, I am disappointed that we're not going to see Theme Park. That is my analysis on all of this. But I think we've seen so much Oregon, so much Villa, so much Clubhouse throughout the entirety of the Oceanic Nationals regular season. I'm pretty sure they lead the stats in all. So it doesn't surprise me that those 3 are in there whatsoever. We know Clubhouse is just, for me, it has always been a map that I I don't think I could ever call it against Wildcard. No matter how close it's been in the first half, Wildcard still just managed to impress me on that map. So I think heading into Oregon and Villa, I mean, the biggest concern right now is Wildcard start off with that one map advantage. I can't see Knights really being able to. I know this is probably going to be a little bit, but I just can't see them beating Wildcard on Oregon. And then again, if we get to Villa, I don't know, man. Like Wildcard are just, for me, have just shown so much perseverance. I mean, Villa has only been shown once throughout the entirety of Oceanic Nationals regular and playoff season for Wildcard, but even then, they had a really good game against Akami on Villa, obviously. But I think that came down to Akami playing incredible Siege, and still Wildcard stood up to that challenge. So for me, again, just reiterating what we've been saying throughout the entirety of this pre-show, Knights have to turn up on those first two maps, and they need to put that pressure onto Wildcard from the get-go. They cannot allow them to get comfortable.
Raven, here's your co-caster. Do you share the same concerns?
Yeah, I definitely do. Coastline is so critical for Knights, honestly. If they lose that and they're down 2-0 in the series straight out of the gate, that means they've got to get 3 maps in a row. It's the whole reverse sweep scenario. And Wildcard have basically lost 3 maps, I think, when you look back all the way to 6 Masters. You know, if you count 6 Masters, the major, Oceanic Nationals, it's basically the amount of maps that they've lost in that period, which is a long time, right? And right now the Knights are charged with having to get 3 maps in a single series to be able to take this. So it's going to be tough, and they need to start off with that positive mindset, get map 1 in the book. It does negate that map advantage at stage then, and it feels more comfortable.
Well, I'll throw it back over to Dev first and then Guz after, because obviously you two didn't get to see the other picks when discussing. Has anything changed to your mind since we last spoke, Dev?
No, when I look at the whole context of this, right? Oregon, to my knowledge, Wildcard have only played it ever twice, and the first time was against Knights in the 6 major, and Knights actually won that. And the second time was against Akami in the regular season, and Wildcard won that one. So there's actually not that good stats there for Wildcard. I feel like if there's any map here where I'm going to swing towards Knights, it's actually going to be Oregon. But you got to get there first, right? Wildcard could do this in 2 maps. So I totally agree with you, Raven. Coastline is super critical here. It's a good map for both teams. I think Knights have to slap that one just straight out of the gate. Clubhouse and Villa are super wildcard favored. So for me, it's going to come down to Knights have to come out with good form on Coastline. They have to also be really good on Oregon. And then hopefully they can either take one of Clubhouse or Villa. And I really hope that they've counter-strateged the absolute living hell out of it, because I think that's how they win against wildcard here.
Well, guys, we kind of signified the importance, I guess, of Coastline. It seems like everyone agrees with that. And Oregon, though, is that a path forward now, potentially, for Knights? If they can get Coastline, they can get Oregon. Is there a way that they can maybe make something of this best-of-5 grand final?
Yeah, I definitely share the sentiment of the group. There's a real chance that the Knights do win their map picks, but that's only 2 maps. You have to win 3 because you don't have the map advantage. And seeing them winning Clubhouse, for me, yeah. And then Villa is even more of a So, like, which one are they going to win? They need to win one of them. And that's even if they're in a position by that stage to actually win one of them. So, look, I think the Knights probably done the best they can in the map veto, so they haven't done it horribly by any stretch, but it was always going to be difficult from the offset.
It certainly is, and I definitely share the exact same sentiment as all of you. I think it comes down to Coastline first and foremost. You lose Coastline, I probably see them losing Clubhouse, and then it's a 3-0. So Coastline's going to be super, super important. Let's, though, of course, dissect the Snowball Expert Panel prediction. I say expert, it's in quotation marks. Number 1, Guz, of course, will remain at number 1. I will remain number 2. That means we're the best caster pair when it comes to the predictions. Dev, 21, what's happened? Have you spent too long away from us?
I was actually going for the wooden spoon this season, but Sky and Ducky had just beat me. So, damn it, guys, damn it.
Raven, of course, you and Manic at both 22. How cute. You'll end up on the same amount of points. But looking at it as a whole, no surprise to see everyone has, of course, gone for Wildcard.
Yeah, not surprised at all. I've said it a lot. It's hard to predict against them. Even if you think it's going to be close, ultimately, it's hard to predict that they'll lose. I'm going to put it out there, though. I think given the way the veto just went, there is totally a world, I'm not saying it's likely to happen, but there is totally a world where the Knights could 3-0 this series. If they come out of the gates and get Coastline, I mean, they're not terrible at
Did you say
Clubhouse.
Knights get 3-0?
Yep, I did say that.
Well, they can't. They're
Yeah.
up. They're technically
be a devil's
3-1. You
advocate.
mean?
3-1, 3-1.
3-1. Well, 3-1. Sorry, but like,
Jeez.
you know
This
what?
is why
you
you're
know
not
what I
first
mean.
in the predictions.
Oh, but you know what I mean. Like, they are not like a slouch at Clubhouse either. So if they manage to get Coast and then a surprise on Club, it comes down to Oregon. And I am totally in the side of what Dev said. Stats would definitely be favoring Knights over Wildcard on Oregon right now. So I don't know. It's a little bit scary. I think if Coastline does go the way of Knights, that percentage becomes more and more likely. But like I've said, it's hard to predict against Wildcard. I can see that potentially happening, but at the same time, I doubt it will happen.
Manic, surely this time you're not actually going to believe your co-caster and share the same sentiment that it's going to be a 3-1 to Knights. Look, we'll start with you, Manic, and we'll make our way across. Final thoughts before we get into this.
Look, I think regardless, we are pretty across the board in terms of this will be a wildcard heavily sided game. And I do think the fact that we've only seen Villa and Oregon once from wildcard, that actually scares me to see what they'll pull out in a grand final. That is something definitely you want to keep your eyes on if we actually get to Villa. So, well, actually either of them, because there's potential we don't. So just Knights, boys, I am begging you right now, you have to come out swinging and you have to be ready to play.
Raven?
Me again?
Yeah, you again. Yeah, I said that's what we're going across, Manic, Raven,
Yep.
guys.
Okay, yep. Look, I think it just to reiterate, Knights are got to win Coastline. If they don't win Coastline, I think it's just too grim. Wildcard is going to be too strong at that stage.
Guzman Gomez?
Yeah, I don't think we can underestimate just how important this grand final is. Wildcard want to win this for the best seeding at the major. They're the only team in Oceania that can actually make 6 invitationals. So don't underestimate how hard they are going to go in this match for that really important seeding. And who knows, maybe the Knights can capitalize on that bit of pressure that maybe they're feeling and maybe pull off the upset.
Final thoughts from Mr. Hollywood himself?
Yeah, well, to add to that, guys, Wildcard have won back-to-back Oceanic Championships now. The inaugural Oceanic Nationals 2020, if they win this, plus 6 Masters. Before that, it was a rough slog. Invitational did not go well for them. They came off the back of probably the darkest time that Wildcard has ever seen. 2020 started really poorly. They brought in the new blood. They lost Ethan. They bring on Vinny. This is their moment to really set themselves up to take the Invitational 2021, to get themselves there. If they can win this game, they get straight into that major grand final. They win that, they're qualified for SI 2021. And I think that's really what Wildcard has on their minds right now. But guess what? They've been sitting there. Everything on paper says Wildcard, but they're just sitting there all day watching Knights just have their way with Akami. Knights have been in the server, warming up, having a good old practice scrim against Akami. Now they're going to come in red hot fire, ready to go. They take Coastline, and suddenly I'm going to start to look at those snowball predictions with a little bit of suspicion that we might all have egg on our face by the end of today.
Well, thank you very much for your thoughts, your time as well, Dev, and to you as well, Guz, for this season. But this is it. It's the moment we've all been waiting for, the grand final, the best of 5, the 2 best teams. Pittsburgh Knights will be up against Wildcard, and they must get off to a good start against Wildcard on Coastline. Over to your casters, it's Manic and Raven.
Thank you very much. And gentlemen, a pleasure it has been throughout the entire season with you. And what a joy it is for Raven and I to bring it into the grand final. I can't reiterate enough. This is a huge opportunity for Wildcard to set the standards, to set the statements for the next 6 to 12 months. It is all going to come down to this best of 5, and a lot riding on the line here, as the winner will, of course, secure that grand final spot come that Oceanic Major.
Yeah, look, that's an important point. We're talking about the seeding advantage. It is literally, if you win this grand final, you will make it into the Oceanic Major grand final by default as the first seed. So that's a big deal. And to highlight what we were talking about with Wildcard, they are in the position to make SI should they win the November Major. So that is definitely going to be on their minds right now. And in that vein, I feel like that puts more pressure on Wildcard in this instance right now. For the Knights, if they end up losing a series, in a way, no skin off their nose, yeah? Like, they're going to be second. They've still got the major position, all that kind of stuff. But for Wildcard, if they end up losing this, they have to think about dealing with Okami to make it to the grand final of the major. So pressure totally on the side of Wildcard.
Certainly is. And the fact, you know, when you look at the track record of what Wildcard have really been able to do over the past 2 seasons with all of their roster changes, it is still quite triumphant. And like I was saying, I'm really looking at Wildcard. The target is on their back, and this is where they need to be making the statements. Now, a statement has already been made against both Okami and Pittsburgh Knights. I will just remind you, the run-in that Wildcard had a 7-3 victory on Clubhouse, an 8-7 victory on Villa against Okami, and then backed it up with 2 knockout performances against the exact team that is in the server right now. 7-3 Villa and 7-2 on Consulate. So they have really come into playoffs ready and raring. So, Raven, what are we expecting in this? We know Knights have to get off to a good start. Do you think the bans are going to help them whatsoever in this? That's 2 massive roam operators on that attacking side just gone.
Yeah, look, the Lion ban is a bit of a baffling one for me. I'm not sure I've really seen Wildcard use a lot of Lion to the point where I would say, hey, boys, let's ban it. That's going to put a big dent in their armor. So, I don't know, there's probably a lot more behind it, but I can't really see the reasoning right now. Outside of that, Jackal's always a good ban because it means that it's harder to hunt down the roam, like you were saying. And on top of that, getting rid of the Valkyrie on the start of Wildcard, that does make roaming a touch trickier because you generally are doing so with less info. That's the great thing about Valkyries. You can chuck those cams around. It's low profile. Rush, hello?
Hello? Yeah, that's a way to start it. It's Wildcard initiating. The diffuser's already down. Oh my word. Absolute mayhem here. Sage and Hayward to try and claw this back. Wildcard, they set the pace. They set the tone for what is this best of 5 grand final. And by God, Knights, are they shaking in their boots? Because that is terrifying.
That is a fantastic decision from Wildcard because Knights would have been feeling a lot of confidence coming out of that match with Okami. Dino loves to be a little bit cheeky in those interviews. You know, he talks about how they're always going to stop their opponents, and he talked about the bait, obviously, with the Consulate on Okami. And for Wildcard to just come out and, you know, the bit of a BM with the rush, humiliate Knights, put them back in a box on what we've always highlighted as this is going to be one of the most important maps in this series. I think that is such a solid statement from Wildcard.
Certainly is. We actually, little less than 2 maps ago, we saw the attempt from Okami on that rush in Hookah. And Knights repelled it extremely well. They kept 4 alive that time. This is the thing, Wildcard, there is absolutely no way you're expecting that out of the gates. They are a team that are slow and methodical on their attacking side. I know we've spoken about it multiple times, Raven. The new changes that have been made to this roster, it does allow them to kind of go explosively, and we are seeing more and more of it. Just to bring your minds back to the Elevate matchup on Consulate, probably one of the most aggressive games I've seen from them. And this right now, it really sets a tone for Knights that they have to be careful. They really can't be looking at any sort of gimmicky play on their defense regardless. It is going to be that 1-0 start, and Wildcard will be cheering in that fact that we do see Knights reattempting Kitchen.
Yeah, really important for the Knights that they don't let that bother them too much. If anything, that should be a challenge that they need to accept. They need to rise to this occasion. They've made it all the way to the Oceanic Nationals Grand Final. You don't want to let Wildcard put you in a box and then you just have to go home with your ball and that's it. Like, you want to step up right now. I think the Knights are definitely a team that can do that with their aggression. So if I'm Wildcard, now that they have to switch back to this more structured play, I would be a little bit mindful that the Knights are probably going to try and throw it back in their face. You see Dino here. He looks pretty keen to try and peek towards the hookah door. Pat, not too afraid though, enters through as the Mozzie does catch a drone. It's going to affect Wildcard just a touch, but Pat has made some great forward aggression here onto Cool Vibe stairs.
It's certainly pushback Knights. You could see Dino previously playing a little bit more lackadaisy up there. Wasn't able to find the encounter he would have wanted to. Gosh, But for a second there, might be an inkling as to a cheeky push, but Pat is watching that and watching it really firmly. You can see as well, Vinny's just taken all control. Oh my word, Knights are gonna throw 3 players. The bodies go directly to Pat's position, but Raven, he deals with it in a 1v1 trade. Oh my god, Emo-Rin. Raven.
Oh, the heat on this game already, Manic, is through the roof. It's just unbelievable. That 3-body push from the Knights, it almost worked out for them. They did not account for Emo-Rin. So 4 versus 2, still over a minute to play. There's a lot of time here on the clock for this attack to make work. Geo in that vertical position is going to be able to do a lot of work and make site very uncomfortable. Sage is not on site, so it's only Juicy there. He's looking to get aggressive out the front door, and the timing is not right for him. Emo-Rin jumps out the window. He's found a triple for the round. That leaves it all up to poor Juicy, and he's not going to get anywhere before Vincier takes off his head. Wildcard storm out to a 2-0 lead.
Well, I could not be happier with how we've started this matchup. Completely different to what we've seen from both of these teams throughout the season, even throughout the playoffs. This is what Knights have to be able to really contend with. And right now, a sporadic wildcard seem to be catching them off more often than not. I am so happy that we saw that adaptation from Knights. Yes, it is just brutal. It is raw. But you have to try and do something, and potentially that 1-for-1 trade could have worked quite favorably for Knights had Emo-Rin not have stepped up with a huge 2-piece. And so far, it has been an entertaining start. Warning signs just starting to creep through, as that is both the kitchen defenses gone the way of Wildcard. We will head up to Hookah and Billiards, hopefully with a little bit more luck here for the Knights.
I think it was still a good decision by the Knights because it did show Wildcard that they weren't particularly intimidated. You know, I really feel that that first play from Wildcard was a psychological attack on Knights. Really, really wanting to just dampen their vibes, so to speak. But the Knights being confident enough to do that 3-man push-up cool vibes, I think is fantastic. And it almost worked, like you said. Emo-Rin, he did hit a nutty 2-piece. And not something that the Knights could deal with. And on top of that, you know what? Coastline can be a little bit like this with attacks. It's about weathering the storm. I think if the Knights manage to get even just a couple of rounds here, they're going to be pretty happy with that. We saw in that Akami series before, they had 3-3-1/2 in their defense. And then they just didn't lose a round after that. They went off on their attacks.
And it's something that Wildcard need to be aware of fully. And you know that they are. This is not something that I'm saying as if Wildcard won't be prepared for this. But the fact that Knights had such a good showing in the last 6 rounds of their Coastline against Akami will definitely just bring a wind of caution on the side of Wildcard. My word. 40 seconds off. Dino's down. Potentially a C4 with him as well. And Wildcard are not afraid to be taking these straight up gunfights whatsoever. And this really is the best way to be starting out a grand final.
Hugely. And it's something that is a strength of the Knights is their aggression. They're able to turn it on and off at a dime. And Wildcard, with the way they're playing right now, it's a good way to counter that aggression. And on top of that, it is just about containing the Knights, not letting them dictate the pace. It's something we've spoken quite a lot about with Siege lately, is about teams dictating the pace and who's playing their comfort zone and that kind of thing. And right now, Wildcard are ensuring that it is them that are dictating that. It's been a great start, honestly. And I was talking to Vinny the other day. It was last night, in fact. It feels like such a blur. He just said that for them, it seems like the game plan is to just shut down the aggression of Knights. And then it's just about playing things as they go. And you can see the game plan. That is exactly what Wildcard is starting to do.
And the thing as well, just to add, obviously we talked about the operator bans on the attacking side, both denying that roam. Both those operators are gone. Pat just adding salt to the wound here for Knights, and this is a way to really be setting that tone and ensuring that no matter how aggressive Knights are playing, that they are going to have to tread with a lot of caution. Once again, I think Wildcard just bringing it to another level here. Juicy, he did hear the player being brought back up. Shot out nicely, so that's only 2 left. That's not the greatest way to be holding cool vibes. And see you later. Not this time. Juicy just gets away. Little tickle of the toes.
Yeah, not really working out there for Juicy. And he's going to be able to down Pat. Geo gets aggressive though, saves Pat, and it's not going to matter in the end. It's all up to Sage. Just in a blink of an eye, he's not be able to get through the whole way. Flawless round for Wildcard. They are rolling right now, Manic.
And like, how are you going to stop this? How are you going to stop this forward momentum of Wildcard? We know obviously Okami had a pretty similar start, all things considered, on Coastline. Again, only 2 maps ago, and Knights were able to almost stop them like a stick in the mud. So without a doubt, they can reach deep and make that work. But they need to be doing it, and they need to be doing it now. This is the warning signs, if ever I had seen them. Could we potentially see a very quick grand final? I will just reiterate the fact that this game, Wildcard Knights, was played last night. 7-3 and 7-2 Wildcard took the opening map, so Knights have already expressed their discomfort in playing this roster. And now they have to stand up. It's time.
See what Knights can do to stop this momentum from Wildcard. Of course, it's always going to be tough on Coastline defenses right now. So they're going to Blue Bar Sunrise. Haven't seen from them yet. They struggled with this against Okami earlier. They looked comfortable on Coastline overall, but with defending this side, I think they were 1 from 3. So it's not a solid site for them in general. And Wildcard, you can already see it. Like, they are ready to punish any mistake that the Knights make on these plays. They need to be really pinpoint precise with the way that they're playing against Wildcard.
So, Knights, we saw this extension from them in the previous matchup. Happy to play in billiards and try to deny, or at least contest, once players get into hookah, but that is not a contest that is bode favorably at all for Haywood. Geo with that ACOG, 9 times out of 10, you'd expect him to win that encounter. And once again, the opening pick into the hands of Wildcard.
That's a great point. All 4 rounds, Wildcard has had the opening kill. It's just not working for the Knights at the start of these rounds. And on top of that, losing Haywood earlier, we talked so much in that pre-show about the importance of Haywood to this roster. And we talked about other players potentially stepping up to assist Haywood. But right now, Haywood's just getting put back in his place. He isn't able to have any kind of effect. So it's not so much about the other players stepping up. It's about the Knights right now stepping up.
Certainly the wing conditions were a lot harsher into the side of Knights, and Pat, he will surely be able to flush out Dino here, who's just sitting on a bit of an off angle. So if Pat turns the corner, potentially he's not expecting to be out in the open, and he will just get away by the skin of his teeth, try to re-peek up top, but Pat will annihilate him. And with that, a 2-man advantage, and Knights scrambling to find something here.
Scrambling for sure. Wildcard with this office control, they can try and get the plant down in Blue Bar soon. They've got 45 seconds to continue to get this set up. Juicy is going to be able to be quite a pest here with the gas canisters on smoke. Josh also looking to flank in around through security. Drone spots him, but he doesn't look like he's going to pull off this mag. Still keen to potentially push through or just deny from courtyard. Regardless, Wildcard need to be aware of his position, as Diesel looks like he is ready to start this plant.
Oh, you said they had to be aware of his position, and it looked just like it. Oh my god.
my gosh.
Back-to-back flawless rounds for Wildcard. They are hitting a new height with this roster, and it's showing right now in the Oceanic Nationals playoffs grand final. Oofed.
Oofed is right. Look, we highlighted the importance of Coastline to Knights in this best of 5. Given that Wildcard have that one map advantage, they've got to come out of the gates in their map pick. Not only just to try and equalize the series count, but also just for their confidence and to not let Wildcard get a little ahead of themselves. If they do lose this map, ultimately they're going to be facing that 2-0. It's just not a great position to be in. It's hard enough for teams at the moment to be taking a single map off Wildcard, but to have to try and go for that reverse sweep 3 in a row, it's a really big task.
Attackers need to locate and
Well, I will just reiterate the only 3 teams to do so, which is a single map, by the way. The only 3 teams to do so: LFO, Knights, and Noble. In the past 2 seasons, that is including playoffs, that is including the major, only 3 times have Wildcard dropped a map. Stats are damning. Regardless of how close it's been this season, me personally, this is exactly what I was hoping to see from Wildcard on the back end. Really putting any thoughts of doubt to rest. And this is an incredible way of doing it.
And for Wildcard, of course, as we said, they are the only Oceanic team that has the chance of making SI with those SI points. So for them, winning this grand final, that gets them into the grand final for the November major. That's a big deal. And likewise for the Knights, of course, if they are able to win Oceanic Nationals grand final here, being able to avoid having to play that semi-final for the major is huge. And it's also a prize money implication because each 3 positions in the major have different tiered pricing.
Yep.
So just for Wildcard to come out of the gates like this is a really strong sign for them. Definitely concerned for the Knights, but at the same time, I want to hold judgment a little bit until we see Knights get onto the attack because they did absolutely monster Okami on the attacks of this map.
Probably one of the few maps that we would say in ANZ has a inkling, an advantage to the favor of the attacking side. So definitely holding reservations for now, but the way in which these rounds have been won, just so damning. The stats are really shining through for Wildcard here. Knights, they are quite spread few and far between. Josh and Hayward on other sides of the map on that bottom site. As we've got 3 hard anchors just trying to hold on. Emo Rin taking control of luggage and now into Aquarium. We'll start to pin slowly and surely.
Yep, good map control from Wildcard right now. Snowmad assisting a lot with these flanks as well. As you know, of course, the Knights are going to try and do... It's generally their play style. That's a great line of sight from Pat. We saw that be pretty fruitful for Geo in previous rounds as well. The Knights look like they've dialed down the aggression a little bit as well. They seemed very keen to be peaking early in those previous rounds, but in these last few, they have just pulled back a touch. And right now, that position from Diesel isn't going to quite flush out this position of smoke. Josh has been downed somewhere around Courtyard. Dino, though, he actually gets the opening kill onto Geo. So that is the Knights stepping up there with their first opening kill of the game.
Certainly one way to get yourself into it. Juicy falling, however, makes things a little bit more awkward for Knights here. It is a 3 versus 5 as Josh is down. We could see there Dino trying to pick him up, but he's just being held by Pat. So it is going to remain a 3 versus 4 as it comes into the final 20 seconds. Wildcard, they are ready to explode here, Raven.
Yeah, Hayward, though, he gets Diesel, so it's going to make it a little bit tougher as Pat pushes through. Good trades coming out, makes it a 2v2. Wildcard get themselves the man advantage, all up to Dino to try and save this for the Knights to get their first round potentially. They don't have Diffuser, so that is going to be a round in the books for the Knights. Finally, on the scoreboard, Manic.
I do wonder where that diffuser was left and potentially Wildcard misstepping on that occasion. A very good call, however, from Knights just to turtle back a little bit further and allow Dino to remain living. And a very well-needed round, all things considered, for Knights as they give themselves some breathing room heading into the last round of the half. You would have to really back them here. If they can't get this 4-2 scoreline, it is, I don't want to say it's doom and gloom, but it really is. Obviously, we still have to head to the tale of two halves, but
Attackers need to locate
so
and defuse
far,
bombs.
they are holding on, and by a whisker.
Honestly, if Knights get this round, and it is a 4-2 half, it's actually not a terrible position on a Coastline defense half. It's not great, but it's not terrible either. And considering just the absolute dominance that Wildcard have displayed, I wouldn't be too unhappy about that if I was the Knights. But most importantly, they just need to stay in the game, because those first few rounds in particular from Wildcard were nuts. And if I wouldn't blame the Knights if they felt a little intimidated by it, at least a little bit. They wouldn't like to admit it, but I'm sure some kind of creeping thought would be there. So important that they just stand strong for this final defensive kitchen, which they have not yet won. See how they go.
Once again, just reiterating that Wildcard do have that default map in hand, so this would spell disaster if they cannot convert. As we head to Clubhouse next, and Clubhouse being a map that has been just such a staple for Wildcard for so long, and it will continue to be so. You can see a fair bit of attention being placed on that upper side of the map for Knights. Not going to be letting Wildcard take it for free. Geo, who bringing the sledge instead of the bark, will be able to get onto those vertical lines quite early, and the longer Knights can hold on to this, the better it becomes for them, because Wildcard will turn up the heat pretty quickly when push comes to shove.
Absolutely. Vincia looked trained onto that position in theater, but didn't quite get the pick through the pixel angle. Wildcard doing a great job of just clearing all the obstacles that the Knights have set up. The Knights definitely not backing down from this fight. Still two of them hold up around theater here. Sage really at the forefront of that, but it is Vincia that does open it up against the Knights there. Dino is the one that falls, and Ibarim backs it up. Manic could be falling apart yet again on this round as Geo takes the head of Sage. It leaves it up to Josh and Juicy for this defense half to try and salvage something for the Knights.
Both of them as well have peeled off of the site rather than trying to anchor down and potentially just being caught in all sorts of crossfires here. They need to try and open something up with a bang. Gosh, holding that line up the top of that bedroom hatch potentially may get a free kill there, but then also has to be able to fall away. Geo not being given really anything to work with just yet, but 40 seconds. Wildcard have managed this round perfectly.
Yeah, they have. They've given themselves quite a bit of time here for this execute. Josh has even been pushed out of sight, caught on a drone as Diesel's going to start the plant. Geo covers from above beautifully, leaving it up to Juicy. He just stands in the line of Pat. That is another flawless round for Wildcard as they close out that half with a 5-1 lead.
Out of the 5 rounds that Wildcard snatched out of the hands of Knights, 3 of them were flawless. We can sit here and and all we want. Knights are being shut out of the server right now, but this is where it can turn for them. This is where happy days may once come to fruition, and it is on their attacking side. We saw 3 or 4 flawless rounds, not flawless, flawless in execution, if you will, rounds from them against Akami once things turn. So this round will be extremely telling
Defenders, protect your bombs from being defused
as
by
we head to the
attackers.
hookah defense for Wildcard.
The Knights did win 4 consecutive attacks against Okami, just in that lower bracket final before this game. So they were able to show that they are strong with their attacks on Coastline, as most teams are. But if they're able to replicate that, I mean, that would be getting them back to a 5-5. I think it's hard to see a timeline here, though, where Wildcard wouldn't win at least 1 more defense round to, at the minimum, force overtime on this map. And even just getting 2 rounds at this stage feels very likely for wildcard. So not a great spot the Knights have got themselves in on Coastline with this scoreline.
Attacker's objective is to defuse a bomb.
It certainly isn't a spot of bother for the roster that has had what you would have to say an incredible season of the Oceanic National regular season, but this is just a beast that is on another level for Wildcard. Knights have had issues versing them pretty much on every occasion. The past 3 times these teams have met, it has been a 7-2, a 7-3, and a 7-2, all in favor of Wildcard here. Josh is going to go deep behind the lobby desk, potentially putting pressure onto Wildcard early here. It might alleviate a little bit of space just on the other side. Emo Rin won't expect him. And very nicely done from Knights to explode early here. The trade is quick from Pat. A 4 versus 3 as Sage just doubles down. Gee, oh my god! Raven, this is absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, and they've just bundled it. They did not get that pick onto the player in blue bar, and that means that Wildcard have come out with this 2 versus 1 advantage. That all happened in the first minute, Manic, and it's just all up to Hayward. He's just going to yeet towards site. Default cam spots him. He has so much time, so he doesn't have to commit to any particular push. Looks like he wants to try and catch them off guard and continue this forward momentum as he pushes through. Hasn't found a play yet. Sees the vault, though. Does get the down. This might be doable, Manic.
If there was one player you want to see still alive for the Knights, it is Haywood! See you later, Geo. Good night. A 2 versus 1 confirmed once again for Haywood. Starting to make a name for himself in these situations, and it will give Knights a much needed round to start off their attacking half.
Was a good start, to be honest. They almost implemented a very similar rationale from Wildcard. They just identified rumors and they went straight for them aggressively. They wanted to come out of the gate swinging. They have put another round on the board. So good start for the attacks, but still a lot ahead of them. Now this Twitch pick from Juicy, we actually did see this implemented against Okami. It worked out very effectively. I remember you pointing out, Manic, that he actually used, in the prep phase, his shock drone to clear all 3 ADSs against Okami.
I would definitely want to keep your eyes on Juicy. The only issue is Vinny bringing that Mozzie, so that could be a little bit of spice for Juicy to have to be at least cautious of. And he will, at the very least, prepare himself near that kitchen entrance. And there's not going to be any util for him to really lay waste to on site as of yet. Wildcard happy to prepare the round with the renovations, the reinforcements before they look to make any kind of decisions. But if they can get a good read on that on Emo Rin and where he is exactly, they could really burn through them quite early and just alleviate the pressure of all that utility needing to be used.
And it's a good spread here from Wildcard. They've got Vinny set up in Sunrise just to ensure that the West presence on that first floor isn't taken early by Knights. But they also have 2 players dedicated to the vertical roam up in Penthouse and Theater, being Geo and Imoring. So it means that there's no easy map control for the Knights to take, other than if they take Office or Blue Bar. That doesn't really help a lot with their progress towards site or the pressure onto site. It's a very spread defense from Wildcard, but it's great because you don't want to have players sitting in kitchen, in particular on this defense. It is a sketchy place to be sitting, especially once the attack gets some verticals and VIP.
Well, that's one shock drone well and truly laid to waste, leaving only 1 to remain. They have been able to open up at least 1 of those mirrors. So just something that, of course, I need to be cautious of. Pat could have found some really nice timing with a C4 there and still might, as he looks for a different angle to try and find them on, but Knights making good use of this early round to at least ensure that Wildcard are a little bit more uncomfortable. Haywood, that would have been a nice start. Not to be. They do waste a C4 and a mirror early on.
Yeah, I mean, that C4's just given extra verticals that the Knights would have got anyway. Josh finally gets the opening kill. Opening double, in fact, to clear out that roam. Beautifully played from the Knights. They're trying to pinch Geo. He is down now. This is looking good for the Knights, Manic.
Good, better than ever, in fact. Oh, wow. Oh, boy. Knights are turning up the heat. A flawless round for them. And they will convert a third. This now starts to make the storyline a lot more interesting. They have turned up to play. Wildcard are not going to be given any freebies whatsoever.
Third repeat of Hookah coming out here from Wildcard. Third? No. What am I saying? Second. But look, the statement that the Knights have made with their attacks has been great. I mean, it's the same kind of statement we saw from Wildcard, looking very strong with these attacks. And that makes this comeback feel a little bit more possible. You know, Manic, we were writing it off that it doesn't seem likely that Wildcard wouldn't get at least one round. But the fact that went flawless and just the strength that the Knights have showed with the early parts of these pushes, like in particular, is great to see. Hookah did almost go the way of Wildcard. Of course, they did come down to a 1v2 for Hayward. But at the same time, it was still a solid display from the Knights. So I am starting to get concerned for Wildcard, but I'll hold that off a little bit longer.
Reservations can just sit in the wayside for now, Raven. It'll surely come to light. Once again, Juicy's sticking the Twitch. So Pat as well was hunting that down. That would have been a big start. Obviously, early on, losing that shock drone wouldn't have been the greatest of impacts, I'm sure, that the Knights were looking for. Regardless, it does not happen, and Wildcard, they really need to tighten this up. We could see how aggressive they really were on that first round, you know, really looking to open up those fights, trying to trade as quick and as promptly as ever. Hayward had to pull up big with a 1v2, so definitely look to the approach of Knights. It looks to be similar with Josh and Hayward both coming from lobby once more.
And another quite spread defense here from Wildcard, just ensuring that the Knights can't get any free or easy map control. It's Geo hold up in Sunrise and Vinny hold up in Kitchen. And the Knights look keen to flush out at least one of them. Immorin being the flex go-between around Courtyard here. They've actually got another one below. I mean, there's one on site if that's the case. Vinny under a bit of pressure here, but they've been able to burn off at least a minute at this stage. You know what the Knights are like, though. They will pull the trigger and just go. So I'm sure Vinny is starting to call out to his teammates that he is under a lot of pressure. These flashbangs finally do get him flashed. Sage getting ready to pounce on the other side. He finds Pat for the opening, and Vinny walks straight into the gunfights as, again, the Knights just opening dominantly here, Manic.
Oh, my word. Knights have entered the server. Diesel, the last to remain. We highlighted him as just a rock for Wildcard, but this is too much. Way too many drones still remaining for Knights. He will start off on the right tread. And he's going to have to do a lot more than this if he wants to be seeing this sixth round and match point being converted.
Definitely going to be tough. He's got a lot of time to burn. He's still got 2 gas canisters in the pocket. Finds one on the double window. Hayward. It is followed up by Josh, though. Knights, they've found 3 in a row. And they are starting to mount this comeback.
And the way they're doing it, in which is really the point to be highlighted. You said in the previous round, you know, the flawless round from them, in fact, that was the good sign. That really can determine the difference between a good-looking attacking side and just an attacking round win. And right now, the warning sign's starting to ring a little bit for Wildcard. I know I was saying it in the first half for Knights, but this is exactly what we needed to see. Out of the gates fast on their attacking half. And on the back of a flawless round, they find 4 openings, all unattended by Wildcard. It's only the Diesel who manages to find 2 in the end that really makes that even somewhat close. I say close in full reservation as well.
Yeah.
And as Wildcard, they move back to bar. Raven.
It's a good point. Like, that was a near flawless round anyway from the Knights, given that it was a 5v1. Yeah, like you said, Diesel got a couple, but they were kind of just consolations. And I was saying, as we were about to get to the half switch, it's hard to call a game over on Coastline when you've only seen one attack half, because it really does seem to favor the attack these days. I believe I heard Xenox say the statistic, or maybe it was Guz, the statistic in the first series we had today, where in OCN, the attack win percentage on Coastline is hovering around 68% at the moment. It's actually quite a solid favor on the attack. The Knights are really showing exactly why that's the case, as did Wildcard, I would say, in their first round. So maybe it's just a matter of, can Wildcard even get one of these defenses?
Well, that would almost be unprecedented for a Wildcard defense to go unobtained throughout what will be an entire half. Of course, Knights will have to go flawless in. They look to close this out in the regulation, which still would baffle me completely. Meanwhile, it looked like Vinny had actually backed away from that mirror. Maybe I was seeing things earlier. Set one up, at least for a little bit more support in kitchen there. Dino has been tagged up quite heavy, but Vinny could very much lose out in that engagement. He'll just give a sniff and move away.
Yeah, I mean, Dino got very tagged in that engagement. Juicy comes through with that Twitch drone, has opened the mirror, so it makes things a bit more sketchy for Vinny here. Looks like he's very much got the thing here of just hold till death in kitchen. They want to deny that map control. It's been very obvious with a lot of their strategy. Pat does get the opening kill onto Sage, something that Wildcard has struggled with, but the trade has come back out. Vinny's still not displaced from kitchen, but Josh is holed up in office now. So that is some good map control that is in the hands of the Knights.
Attackers drop the diffuser.
Well, that's not what you want to see for Knights at this point, as they're starting to mount a comeback. Two very quick trades from Wildcard, a 4 versus 2. Haywood and Josh are still remaining, though. Both of these players have had some mental rounds, and I'm not counting them out of this one just yet. Although the hill is quite high that they will need to climb.
Absolutely going to be tough, but like you said, it's definitely winnable for these two players in particular. They've still got a bit of time too, 45 seconds. Gio's been spotted by that drone. Josh in hot pursuit. Going to try and cut him off from VIP, but he will walk into a crossfire. There is a Wildcard player. It's Imorin over in billiards. Peeks onto Gio, loses the gunfight. Not refragged by Imorin. That does make it more doable, but time not on their side. Imorin, he does get the frag. He does find the second. Wildcard move to match point.
A critical round for them. If Knights progress one more round in their defensive half, it's 5-5, and it is really starting to get a little sweaty for Wildcard there, but they stamp out the thought of it. And now they've got 2 rounds to convert here before we see that first map of Coastline really bow in the favor. But they would definitely be feeling comfortable going into this round right now, Raven. They've broken the streak.
They have it. They've gone back to hookah billiards, which they have lost both times in their attempts so far. They do have a 2-round buffer in the pocket at least. So even if the Knights do get this one, it's not OT just yet. Gio is going to 6th onto the Mozzie. I think this is great having Mute and Mozzie, because the Knights are a pretty efficient team with their drones, especially their early drones. It's what enables their time management and early round aggression to work out so well. So I think it's a great call from Wildcard to ensure that that is hindered.
It's definitely something that we, and by we I mean you, highlighted as a real talking point last night in their match against Akami. So, rather, sorry, against Wildcard, if you will. And
10 seconds left before insertion.
it has been an impressive game that really clawed back for Knights. I mean, And you think about the one round they were able to convert on their defensive half, and that was on the back of a misstep by Wildcard, or seemingly it was. It was the diffuser that was out of hand with 5-10 seconds left to go. Now, once again, Wildcard incredibly spread out right now. That's a shock drone well and truly disabled.
Bomb located by attackers.
As Hayward looks to put a little bit of more pressure through that double window. Diesel not looking to peek it either, not just yet.
No, very important that Diesel does not peek that window, because it's really not a great thing for the smoke player to be doing on this side in particular, to be trying to take these early engagements. It's going to be calling out a lot of info for his team, as they're very spread out. They've really committed to ensuring that no vertical pressure can be obtained. You see Pat and Emo in there defending both bars, essentially. Hayward may be looking to get aggressive early, and you wouldn't count him out from doing that. If he sees that there's only one, potentially two on site, he might decide that he just wants to try and yeet and take it. 3 of the Knights are stacked up here in Hall of Fame as well. They're looking to try and take this VIP control and use the vertical to flush out that player that's hanging out around kitchen.
Doesn't look like they've stuck around there, Wildcard. They've just backed away almost instantly now. Sage with a very deep line onto that double window in Billiards. So rotating for Wildcard, not exactly an option right now. Vinny has come up to almost double down, as still 3 players if you do bar Geo there, Pat and Emo, they are still yet to even be tested, or so it would seem, as Knights start to take more control of luggage and that southern side of the map.
Wasted C4 there too, behind the Aquabar, so that's Pat without a C4 from below. Of course, he does have the line of sight. Diesel actually gets the first peek and the opening kill into Dino. He's going to start to smoke off the entrance into Billiards. Time starting to tick away. Hayward, that's a great pick onto Pat, though. It's going to put them in a slightly more comfortable position, but they are really starting to run out of time to displace these wildcard members. And that's vertical control that has been obtained to the Knights there. You see in that red outline, Josh of the Zofia down below. It's a great position to be, and 30 seconds. It's time for them to start trying to get a move. Great shot from Josh there.
That is devastating for Wildcard. A linchpin in their defense now. Well and truly gone. Juicy on site. Could look to stick this. Vinny has taken down his support, and that's the alarm bells for Juicy. Ringing, Vinny doubles up, but they've still got to be cautious here. Oh my god! Vinny is absolutely ripping heads off of Knights right now. And that will be 4 kills in quick succession to close out the map for Wildcard. They're now 2-0 up in the series, and they're setting themselves up for victory as we head to Clubhouse.
Vinny just single-handedly won that series for Wildcard in that round. That looked like the Knights, once they got that pick onto Diesel, I thought they were going to be able to confirm that plant and that we would be looking at a 6-5, potentially overtime. But Vinny stepping up gets the 4K to close it out. Beautifully done. Wildcard too strong on Coastline. As you said, they're getting out 2-0 in the series. It's now do or die for the Knights.
There you have it. The storyline comes to a close for our first map. 7-4, ladies and gentlemen. It is now oh so pivotal for Knights to step up, because that was the win condition from all of us there on the panel. We were saying Knights have to get at least they have to get map number 1. They have to confirm Coastline, because we just cannot see them really going toe-to-toe with Wildcard on the likes of Clubhouse and Villa. Oregon's still a chance, but we might not even get there, Raven.
Yeah, I'm not too sure we're going to. I think it's going to be it already was a really tough challenge, but now it's just made even harder by the fact Wildcard, they are up 2-0 in the series. So it means the Knights, they have to be perfect on 3 maps in a row. They need to have this reverse sweep. It's just such a tall ask. Winning 3 maps in general against Wildcard is hard, but to do it without dropping one in between, at least if you don't lose that first map, you've still got that buffer. But now it really is. It's just do or die.
Backs are up against the wall for Knights, unfortunately, but good signs for Wildcard as they look to cement their first place in the Oceanic Nationals. Ladies and gentlemen, a short break is nearing, but on the other side, Clubhouse. We'll see you then.
Defender is approaching kill zone. Defender exposed. Attackers bomb the secure hatch of the rock. 10 seconds to go.
All we need is our passports, baby. Leave the rest in our troubled minds. Let us go down in laughter, baby. Trying to figure out what we're after. We're never heading back until we're older. We couldn't care no more, not any longer. Under peach yellow skies, we keep on searching, but we will never know what we're after. Book a plane, fly away. We will never be the same. And as long as you are mine, come on and run away. We wanna run away. We don't need any reasons, baby. Leave it all for the faded hearts. I don't mind if they call us crazy, 'cause they don't understand what we're after. We're never heading back until we're older. We couldn't care no more, not any longer. Under peach yellow skies, we keep on searching, but we will never know what we're after. We're no kids no more. I need to feel alive in this dreadful town. I'm running out of time, and as long as you're mine, I wanna run away. We're never heading back until we're older. We couldn't care no more, not any longer. Under peach yellow skies, we keep on searching, but we will never know what we're after.
Yeah, I see no signals, no signs. Girl, you be tripping.
One map away is Wildcard from securing not only first place in the Oceanic Nationals playoffs, but also that grand final seed, that first seed heading in to the sixth major for Oceania that is coming up in November. So a lot on the line here for Wildcard, but what a map that was. Coastline 7-4. It looked like Knights were on a comeback, but this is why you got to be careful on any given round. A mistake thrown in the way of Wildcard, they will capitalize, Raven.
Yep, and look, Vinny just went absolutely off on that last round to close it out. It did look like the Knights were going to bring it back. I actually felt like we were going to see overtime, but it just it wasn't to be. And I was quickly looking back at past results as well. I was like, I wonder whether these guys have played Coastline against each other before. They did in the August Major Grand Final, and you know what? Wildcard won that 7-4. So
Yep.
Lightning might strike twice.
Might be a bit of a concern because the next map we are going to is Clubhouse. The last two times these teams faced off on this map, it was a 7-2 onslaught from Wildcard. Knights, this is the do or die match. They have no other option. They have no other opportunity. They need to claw this back. They need to bring back map number 2. And it starts in the ban phase because there is no other way we can do it, Raven.
So we'll see what the bans have in store for us today. We've seen quite a big variance of bans throughout playoffs in general. I would normally say, you know, traditional bans on Clubhouse are going to be Thatcher or Maverick. Have seen a lot of Capital bans coming out because he is, of course, a very strong operator in his own right on certain maps, in particular Clubhouse. There's the Thatcher at least. So it does mean that you will have to be picking the Maverick almost every single round of your attacks.
To see for those defensive bans, Valkyrie. Obviously a fair bit of intel you can gain from Clubhouse and can be a vital, a pivotal role played if played in the right way. Knights will get the last opportunity in the ban phase before we head to round number 1. And once again, if we said that Knights need to get off to a good start in the opening round of Coastline, it is even more so echoed here. Clubhouse has been a mainstay for the Wildcard roster for such a long time, and it is definitely, I do not envy Knights in this position right now. So CCTV will be the first site they will attempt.
It's been a dark history for the Knights against Wildcard on this map. Going back to that Oceanic Major Grand Final in August, I talked about how it was 7-4 on Coastline. Well, you know what? The map before that was Clubhouse. It was a 7-4 to Wildcard. So it really could just be history repeating itself. If you want to go back even further, in 6 Masters, Wildcard got a 7-0 against the Knights on Clubhouse. So it does not have a nice history against for these two teams. Knights, yeah, like we've said about 1,000 times already, they have no second chances right now. They want to continue through this grand final for Oceanic Nationals and fight for that first seed position for the major. They have to pull out their first win against Wildcard on Clubhouse.
So what you're telling me, Raven, is out of the 3 times that these two teams have played Clubhouse in the past consecutive 3 times, that is, Knights have only been able to gain 6 rounds.
5 seconds remaining.
Yes, that is correct. That is correct. If you want to go back even further, I'm just looking even further through these results. All the way back in the start of 6 Masters in the regular season, they played Clubhouse against each other. And that was a 7-2 for Wildcard again. So it just really does not have that great history for the Knights. And I'm very concerned for them because I just think this map in particular, it just favors the playstyle of Wildcard over Knights.
It is a very structured map. We've said it time and time again, and Structure has been the name of the game for Wildcard for so long now, and likely we will be looking at this similar ending here if Wildcard turn up, and if they turn up in the same fashion we have always seen. Haywood, though, takes down Buck nice and early. A very big pick, as we know how much of an influence Geo has in these rounds, so on the right foot to begin with.
Look like they got an impact trick off on the first Selma charge at least anyway, so that is going to be Pat using his final to get the angle onto the garage rafters, but it's going to get shut off. So that's a good play there from the Knights. They've come out of this whole first minute pretty well. Like you said, getting the pick onto Geo in particular is a big pick because he has been very influential and impactful for Wildcard. And now that they've cleared all of the utility from the ace, and the only result of that is that the CCTV wall is open. I think that's quite a win there for the Knights.
Looks like they just rid the CC wall of that Maestro cam, which I assume was what denied the Selma charges from actually going off in the first place. So one less piece of utility they're going to have to worry about. But the time is dwindling away here, and they need to get Haywood out of this position. We've seen highlight clips from him multiple times before. He's been taken low. Once again, though, it's never confirmed. It's never over until the fat lady sings. And Haywood needs to step up once more here for the Knights.
Yep, he does, but he vaulted straight into the nade. I think it actually hit him on the noggin. So Diesel closes it out on that engagement. Makes it the 4v4. And now that they've got the garage rafters control, they're going to press forward. They have to use further hard breach to get a rotate here, but they've got it in the pocket. They've brought the Habana. They're ready for this. Impact coming out does not hit the mark on either occasion. That would have been really important for the Knights. Diesel's going to enter. Looks like he's going to start the plant here, Manic.
Great crossfires being set by Wildcard early. 2 smokes now being used.
15 seconds to go.
So should it usually be the case, there will only be one more left. That's a lot of denial thrown the way of Wildcard. If they're counting, there may not be enough here to stop them from sticking this. 2 seconds left. Pat goes into the smoke early to ensure that he can get this. 2 big picks from Diesel and Vinny, and it's an absolute flawless end for Wildcard there. 4 players remaining, and such a great execute in what is the first round of Clubhouse.
It was, though, it was a little sketchy, you know, when that final player, I've honestly forgotten who it was, ran through to get the plant confirmed. They ran through bullets that were being pre-fired from below, and with 2 seconds on the clock, that could have been the end. The diffuser would have been dropped. They might not have been able to recover in time. A Wildcard, they scrambled, they covered well. Diesel in particular, he got below and prevented that vertical control from denying the plant. So really, really good job from Wildcard, because the Knights looked pretty good for a lot of that defense. One thing that was also a concern is they just dumped everything into denial too quickly. I think they got a little bit frantic, and I think that's a good insight into potential mindset of the Knights right now.
Yeah, they'd really blown. It felt like there was, if the audio cue served correct there were 2 smoke babes thrown out when they initially went for that plant in the first place. And had they not have thrown 2, they would have had enough to entirely deny what time was remaining, plus that C4 that eventually came in.
Yep.
So, you know, just small micro mistakes that, again, if you are not able to correct those, it really comes back to haunt you against a team like this, and against any team realistically, but it is extremely highlighted when you are looking at the Wildcard attacking. Haywood, man, come on. Leave my boys alone.
Yeah. Good start from Wildcard on these attacks. See what the Knights do have for us right now. Doesn't look like they're going to go for a roam, which, again, I'm a little surprised about, just given the playstyle of the Knights. I felt like that they would want to try and stick some kind of roam on Clubhouse, which is pretty common for a church defense. The fact they're not doing that, again, concerns me a little bit, that they are getting in their own heads about the position they're in.
Wildcard very early on here, the 2-minute mark, making all of those vertical lines from Logistic all the way down to Kitchen. So they do have that free roam. And they will be allowed to dismiss and play with whatever they need. Dino playing close to the hallway there. Geo will start to inch further toward it, but it won't make a difference. Dino completely backing away in that instance. So it looks like Wildcard have near but all the vertical lines they would want set up early here.
Yeah, so far time management's actually been pretty good from Wildcard, and it's not something I've mentioned yet, but something that has always been a concern has been Wildcard's attack pacing. It's never been that fast. You know, they usually end up leaving themselves very little time. Probably the biggest weakness of their attacks compared to a lot of the other Oceanic teams is they really never have time for their executes. But in playoffs, they've really gotten on top of it. I noticed it against the Knights last night. They just were so quick, and they were ready for their executes with 30 seconds to go, which is pretty good timing for Wildcard, given they usually only give themselves about 10. And right now, they're almost set up for a very similar situation. They've gotten so much control. They're really ticking all the boxes.
Pincing Knights onto the site now. 2 players in dirt that are just trying to find their safe haven for when Wildcard eventually go. 30 seconds, and now they will start to execute. The attention being put on site. Sage and Josh go down early in this encounter. And Wildcard, they just settle for a second here, Raven, and they will start to go now.
Yeah, but Dino, he's just watching the drop. He can continue to do this as they drop one by one.
What?
Not sure what the play is here from Wildcard. Juicy answers with another. Geo is going to start planting. Haven't given themselves much time after that drop fiasco. Vinny isn't able to cover well enough, and the Knights pull that one out of nowhere, Manic.
Gone unchecked. Dino will really wreak havoc, and it's exactly what he's done on this occasion. Wildcard probably scratching their head trying to figure out how it all went so horribly wrong. Seems like such a simple solution with Dino just holding the line to hatch. If only it was that simple every other round. One apiece, and very important that Knights get around on the board early here. It sets them up for, at the very least, the room to move as we get later into this half. As it felt like that was what really caught them off on Coastline, was the fact that we did not see them convert a defensive round until the 5th attempt. So great to see it so early on.
Defenders, protect your bombs from being defused by attackers.
You have to feel, though, it was really more off the back of a big oversight from Wildcard, right? They just never seemed like they considered somebody was holding the church double door watching the hatch drop. And they just continuously just went one by one, so Dino could just reset every time, take the shots like shooting clay pigeons, essentially. So a Wildcard, that's a bit unfortunate for them, but the Knights capitalized. They're gonna go to Jim's bedroom, and if they do manage to get a few rounds on a roll, you know, maybe you consider them back in it here, but always hard to call at this stage after just seeing 2 rounds.
Siege is definitely a game of forced errors, and you do have to capitalize on them. So it's a great point you make there with Knights actually converting it. It is one thing to have the opportunity, and it's another to successfully work on it. And Emorin on the back of that live drone from Vinny will allow him early access into Garage here, as well as a very early C4 being placed into oil. So Wildcard happy to pick up the pace a little bit more so than what we've generally seen in rounds before.
Good pacing. Gonna push in through CCTV cache. 2 players there holding the rotate at the top of cache stairs. Josh is gonna use that shield to hold, and there's a lot of utility to have to clear to deal with this. They're gonna have to clear this Banshee if they want to try and clear Josh's position. He's got multiple ADSs to protect himself and the shield. And on top of that, Dino's ready to impact trick any hard bridge they use to get into cache, which is also jammed with the mute jammer. So, I mean, this is not going to be a particularly easy clear for Wildcard on this side of the map.
Speaking of hard breaches, plenty to do that, but again, it is going to come down to being able to lay waste to the utility that lies in front of them there, and Knights really could just burn through this time. Not only that, but burn through the players. In fact, Pat, he's looking for something. A shoulder is given. Josh will eventually be taken down, but Pat still needs to be cautious. There is still that one player in Dino holding cash, and it just depends on how long he is going to stick this. All rotates are pretty much being watched at this point. You would have to imagine it is just a case of cutting off the limb to save the body here.
Yeah, he just needs to stay patient. I think he doesn't need to try and go for any hard engagements. Vinny will finally end it through the breach that was made by the Maverick. Diesel gets Sage as he tried to peek to refrag, I'd say. That's given Wildcard a 4 versus 2 advantage now. With still 50 seconds. It's quite a lot of time to be able to push towards site. Hayward's the one that's holed up on the gym side at least. But it's going to be really tough. Juicy hoping to catch somebody at this logistics hatch. That being said, I don't think Wildcard do have the jacuzzi wall open. So it is a bit of a funnel that they're going to have to do in from that construction side.
Time is definitely a factor in this one. That is the first smoke babe of the round coming out with 20 seconds left. Wildcard might have to go deep here and try to put the pressure onto site. Diesel's been able to spot out Haywood. He'll tag him up to begin with. Once again, Juicy can just sit back and hold as they try to push in now. He doubles down to help Haywood out, and it will not convert the round. Wildcard, they bounce back after that blunder in the basement.
Felt like there was a chance there for the Knights to potentially be able to repel that, but just the confidence and the team push from Wildcard was far too strong. Nothing they could do about it. They're going to rotate back to cash CCTV, which of course was a quite strong victory for Wildcard back in round 1. So whether the Knights have made any key learnings here or not that they can use to adapt, I think it's just important for the Knights to stay in touch on the scoreboard in this first half.
Certainly so. Even not for the obvious reason, if just for for the mentality, sorry. You know, even if you manage to bring this round back and it ends 4-2, you'd still consider it a decent half that Knights have pulled out. But I don't know, there is something about, I know this is going to sound quite outrageous, but there is something about going down 4-1 and just clawing back that last round that kind of feels a little bit gimmicky. And that it is a last-ditch effort, so Knights are... Look, they're definitely keeping true to ensuring Wildcard do not have an easy trot by any means, and
10 seconds to insertion.
although these rounds may not have seemed close, 4v2 in that instance, and the execute from Wildcard, Knights have still done a great job at ensuring that time is wasted early. Haywood in the first round on the rafters, and in that case, Dino and Josh. Whoa. Oh, no. No.
Oh, Hayward doing Hayward things. He loves to do this kind of stuff, and that is probably the worst operator that Wildcard could have lost early on the ace. Potentially the Maverick, you could say, might have been a worse loss, but regardless, that's a solid start for the Knights here. Diesel not wasting any time, though. He's just going to get to work on this wall. It has been electrified. So, yeah, Wildcard starting on the back foot for once in a round.
Great call from Haywood to find that opening pick on the Pat. Like you said, very detrimental in the operator that goes down. But I also enjoy this from Wildcard, cutting their losses and going early to ensure that the player lost is not a round lost, if that makes sense. So very early here, the CCTV wall will be opened. Knights unfazed for now, though.
Hayward looked like he'd seen something. In fact, he's just going to get aggressive again down the rafter stairs into garage. Looks like he might be thinking of a peek towards the gym window. He's going to prep the hit hole and see what he can find, but he's not going to be looking in the right direction at least. Wildcard players aren't actually on that balcony. But that is definitely a danger. They're actually already in Master, so he's not really going to find anything unless they vault back out and put some pressure in CCTV window. Right now, the Knights, they don't have to make much of a move. Much more of an onus on Wildcard to get something happening here. Josh might get a little caught off guard.
Bomb located by
And
attack.
that he is. Vinny will actually take him out.
Second round in a row now, we've seen Wildcard use that blowtorch almost as a murder hole to allow a very easy and quite impactful kill, all things considered. They now have control of construction. Not fully, but there's no one in there to stop them, bar these smokes that are being thrown out early. And 35 seconds. Once again, Knights are pretty well turtled on site here, and I would say in a good position.
And Hayward too, he waited there for so long and he missed his opportunity. He does get Immerin to make it a 3v3 as Juicy gets one onto Diesel. So potentially doable here. It's leaving it up to Vinny and Geo. They haven't got much of an option. They've got to go in through to Cash. Vinny gets a nice opening there as he makes his way to site. He's going to have to try and stick this plant. Knights, they're going to have to try to get this denial. It's up to Geo on this cover. They're going to confirm this, man. It's going to be post-plant.
The Batman to his Robin. Geo now left to salvage the round, and Knights, they will not allow it. 2-2. Keeping themselves in that, really in the arm's distance away from Wildcard. And so far, so good for the Knights.
Yeah, they're hanging in there. They're hanging in there. I think that's it's both important but still scary because Clubhouse isn't like Coastline. It's not where once you go on your attack half you expect to excel. If anything, it's more the reverse. So it's going to be about how on point the Knights can be with their attacks, I think is what's going to need to be what wins them the game here. Because of course they can stay in touch on the defenses. If anything, they might end up with a 4-2 half here. That's totally not to be expected. It's not unexpected, but it's really about what they can do with their attacks.
Attackers need to locate and defuse bombs.
And it felt like that was very much the case on Coastline. It really, it is coming down to Knights. I know this, really, it comes down to the second half to determine who wins the game. No way. That's incredible. But I do think that there is this real sense that Knights are almost more dangerous on their attacking side, and with that, we do very much look to the second half of both Coastline and Clubhouse to really see what they've got up their sleeves, because they are a team that do their prep. They are a team that do their homework. And it can be a little bit harder to do so when you're on the defensive side in the first case on both map 1 and map 2. Just to reiterate for the viewers at home, this of course, as you may have seen up the top left, best of 5. It is a best of 5. However, it's a little bit different. It is a default map into the way of Wildcard. So currently they are only 1 away from clenching the title of the Oceanic National Champions.
Knights are definitely trying to stop that, and on this church defense, they are going to be sticking more of a roam this time. Hayward maybe feeling more confident, more comfortable. He's really been getting into the game in these last few rounds, in particular that spawn peek onto Pat. It's quite a big deal in that CCTV cache attack. Here he's just going to be elusive, running around shooting these drones. Wildcard not quite actively pursuing him at this stage, but Immerin pushes through to engage, and that's all they needed. Down goes Hayward. Now they've got the opening frag for this round and looking pretty.
I wish you said I look pretty.
Oh, you do look pretty, mate.
Just fishing for the compliments. Stop it, you. Stop it. Okay, Knights, they are definitely on the back foot in this case. And Hayward has really been a big factor in a lot of what Knights have been able to achieve. The raw power and mechanical ability on this man cannot be understated. So definitely a big loss early on here. Dealing with the Banshee now, just being cautious of potential C4s through the flooring. As now Knights have turtled back onto site in this case.
They have defaulted back now. No point sticking to their own. Wildcard got too much control. And speaking of control, they're getting this church wall open. That's going to give them a lot of pressure onto site. Dino has at least evened out the man count. It's going to help a little bit into the execute phase. But still, the control from Wildcard right now is looking pretty good. That makes it look even better. Beautifully cooked nade from Diesel. Means coming into this final 30 seconds, the Knights are really in a tough position.
Turtling on site. Cornered to try and fight with nothing but their wits and their will here. Emorin just showing face. They now know he's in blue, but Pat alleviating the pressure in Church. It leaves it all onto Sage. And he is going to have to try to find these 1v1s, isolate a couple of fights, but Wildcard will double peak him. And they will come out with round number 5. 3-2 the scoreline as we head to the last round of the half.
The Knights can hope for a 3-3 at best right now. And okay, it doesn't give me a whole lot of hope for them in this map. Still, we haven't seen their attacks yet, so we'll hold off a little bit. But right now, Wildcard looking very comfortable. On top of the fact, I just saw the Knights almost all lock in their operators in that last 1 or 2 seconds. There is clearly a lot of discussion happening in this team with what they want to do, what they're trying to change, what they might need to fix, all that kind of stuff. Just seeing that uncertainty or indecision even. It's definitely not a great sign for the Knights. Could be reading into it too much, but
yeah.
It's kind of my gut feeling based on seeing something like that.
Certainly a good point for the viewers at home to obviously, you know, it is, we only get that broadcast level information, so we can only see the, you know, what is really going on. We don't have the players anywhere near us. We can't hear the comms, so it's always something worth noting. And coming into the last round, you would say this is critical for Knights right now. I wouldn't even say they're necessarily hanging on by a thread, because that does not do the justice that really has been this first half for them. They've played incredibly well, but going into Wildcard's defensive side on Clubhouse at a 4-2 half, not favoring you, is definitely concerning, to say the absolute very least.
It is. Well, look, I'm seeing some solid changes here from the Knights. Of course, last time they did Gym Bedroom, it wasn't successful for them, so they have switched it up a little bit. Bringing this mirror has created an interesting dynamic here. They've got one facing construction from logistics. They got the other, it looked like, at the top of the red stairs there towards cash. Are we Josh looking to utilize that to help them hold that a little longer? See whether that works out. Something last time also the Wildcard didn't do was open Jacuzzi Wall. They just straight dedicated all of their utility towards taking CCTV cash, and that's where they had it. But right now, Diesel actually is prioritizing opening it, so they've made their own adaptation.
As they start to open this up a little bit more, it looks like they're putting pressure on multiple sides at the early part of the 2-minute mark now. This was a really big part of Knight's ability just to make Wildcard a little bit uncomfortable in that third round. Really felt like that cash hold, it had some oomph to it, if you will. Just not being able to convert on the back of it now. With Wildcard not putting that much attention across there. You just saw Hayward drop on your screen there. He's come down into pool, I believe, so he's going to have to be cautious. Emorin, unless that was my eyes deceiving me, he's actually still holding, and it looks like unknown to either team, in fact, where each other are, so a stalemate for now.
I actually think Emorin really heard a drop down. It looked like he did a slow tilt, not wanting to cause his character to make an animation change, which would have alerted Hayward. See, Hayward doesn't have any idea. He has not at all considered that Imarin is in that bathroom. He's trying to hold a tight angle here. He sees them cross into Jim, not giving away his position. In fact, I think they might even be in the bathroom. And right now, with this 30-second mark coming, there's about to be this engagement, and Billiards, and it's going to be Imarin getting the jump, putting Wildcard a 2-man advantage ahead. This execute is happening, Manic.
Trigger discipline not paying off dividends there. They are throwing everything but the kitchen sink at Wildcard and nothing converting. A flawless round to end the half. And 4-2 will be the scoreline as Wildcard will head to their attacking half now. The last two, well, the last 3 times even 4 times if you want to go back that far, that we have seen these two teams play on Clubhouse. Little less than I think 7-3 is, 7-4 is the highest or closest that Knights have been to pushing Wildcard on this map. So keeping true to the trend, it is on Knights now. They're attacking half. They have to step up here, otherwise Wildcard will confirm this best of 5 as a 3-0.
I feel like that is really where we're tracking right now. A 4-2 half is what you would normally expect from the defense side on Clubhouse. So the fact that Wildcard got that in their pocket as they rotate to defense is a massive concern for the Knights right now. They really have to dig deep and step it up on these attacks. It is not going to be easy. Wildcard just need 2 to at least ensure overtime. And when you have the Thatcher ban, you can often say the Church Arsenal defense is usually the one you can put in the books at the minimum. So even if Wildcard, if all they win is their Church Arsenal defenses, that guarantees overtime already.
Attackers must locate and defuse a bomb.
Not good signs, Raven. It's not good signs, but hope can still be held on for the Knights. We've heard multiple times from Dino so far in this playoff series that this is the one team that they seem to have all the issues with, and rightfully so with Wildcard standings. Look at this right now. Oh my word. Diesel almost given a free haircut there as they fall back. So wait and see whether it burns any time on the clock, which it doesn't look like it's going to just yet.
Wildcard a bit lucky there. I feel like the Knights had the jump. They just missed the shots on those players rotating down. I think it was Imarin, one of them. Anyway, they are lucky. Diesel has taken up the dirt position. Seems aware they have opened it. Oh, Chio just saw the toes of the Sledge player, not able to capitalize. Looks like the Knights are keen to really push this attack quickly here. It's already getting close. And that C4 is going to end Hayward. Impact Trick doesn't get to the hatch in time, though, so it will go open.
Tit for tat. I don't know whether Hayward would have all of the lines open that he would want to. It felt like Knights had only really breached into the building with 2 minutes, so potentially just those vertical lines in kitchen is all they're going to have to deal with. So of course they want to bring Josh or Sage across to open up any other vertical lines. There you go. No, it's just those 3 lines in kitchen that they're going to have to fight with. Obviously the hatch is a big step in the right direction. But is it enough when you're up against a team like this?
I'd say potentially not. And Imarin is looming still on this main stairs position. It doesn't look like it's been droned or touched by the Knights. Josh still looks concerned that someone's upstairs. He's just hanging out on the top floor, not helping his team have much of an impact further to sites. The Knights are pretty stalled right now. Wildcard are really in great positions. Diesel is going to take out Juicy in dirt just there. It's always a great position with that shotgun. And here go the Knights. 30 seconds, they're going to drop. I think it's going to be a tough end to the round for them.
Couldn't imagine they're going to be able to convert this, that's for sure. With Gio, he will find Sage and back it up onto Dino. A flawless round, back-to-back here for Wildcard. They are 1 away from match point, 2 away from securing the title. of champions once more in the ANZ region.
Really looking grim here for the Knights. That was, they got absolutely demolished on that defense, to be quite honest with you. And that's also the third round in a row that Hayward has been the first death in the game. And for the Knights, I mean, we've talked about the importance of Hayward that he had throughout the regular season for the Knights. And he just hasn't been able to have the impact needed to put Wildcard on the ropes at all. And it's a big concern.
And into it now. I mean, the job only gets harder from here for Knights. Potentially they may have a map to breathe on in Oregon. Even still, I am not confirmed that that is something that Wildcard are not prepared for. But should Knights be able to really double down and go 5 rounds straight here, or push it to overtime and come out the victors, it is Oregon and Villa that they will have to best Wildcard on before we are even able to call them the new Oceanic Nationals champions. So very long way away just yet, but it all starts with a round here and a round there. Vitally important now as Juicy looks to open up the CCTV wall.
Oh, and those shotgun holes have absolutely made this a pain for him. He's going to go back and consider taking a little bit more time than he probably would have liked. Just looking at the bottom, deciding that he's going to shoot out the soft part first. Just delaying this again for the Knights here. Wildcard. Pretty spread. You know, there's only Diesel and Geo that are really on site. They got 2 players still hanging out in lounge. Vinny on a run of his lifetime right now. He's going to go out through strip. I dare say he's going to try and even run out and get a pick onto Sage, or try to at least.
Maybe might give Knights even more of a concern. Wildcard definitely look like they're happy to play a little bit more aggressive as the season has gone on. In fact, Geo will take a little bit of a tag. Hayward, though, will take down Emo Rin early on here, but Vinny's in a perfect position to trade that out. Pat's done so as well. And what started out as an advantage for Knights has almost ended in tears. Vinny still holding on there. And Hayward decides not to peek it just yet. Oh, the drop shot. See you later, alligator. Nicely done from Pat.
Oh boy. Well, it's going to make it very tough for Josh and Juicy. I mean, I talked about how Hayward hasn't really been able to have an impact on the game either. One of the other really consistent players for the Knights, Josh, just saw there, he's 1-7. But he has not been able to get in the game either on this map. It's just the Knights in general. I think it's a big tale of the series. On top of that, Geo is going to down and kill Juicy at Garage. And look, that's the Wildcard closing the round out. Manic, they move to match point on the map and on the series and for the tournament.
1 round away. It does not seem achievable for Knights. Surely we are not going to see yet again another 7-2 defeat on this exact map of Clubhouse. It feels like that is exactly the trend here as Wildcard look to flawlessly run on their defensive half. Gym and bedroom to remain.
Potentially looking at a perfect sweep of sites to close it out here too from Wildcard on their defense half. The Knights have really not looked in it on any of these attacks. I mean, the first attack round that they had for their half was a flawless against them. That one was almost a flawless. So I think this is it's getting close to being sung out as done and dusted here, Manic. Knights need 4 rounds perfectly to save this one.
And we were saying 3 maps straight was almost unimaginable. 4 rounds at this point seems unimaginable. Wildcard are asserting their dominance, and again, it is just so crucial that on the back end of the season that has been so closely contested, that Wildcard stands strong and they finish it off with a monstrous statement, not dropping a single map throughout this playoffs. I cannot mention enough how strong that is and how incredible of a performance it has been from them here.
Absolutely. So, what have the Knights got? Can they salvage this? Vinny looming below. He wants to sneak up, try and flank the Knights maybe from those cash stairs. They're prioritizing, again, the map control on this east side here, using the blowtorch to get the CCTV wall open. They're taking quite a lot of time to do so, though. Almost this whole first minute dedicated to getting this open. Juicy is not having a great time getting this done here. Finally, it goes soft, but all these seconds count. Wildcard still have very solid control there of cash.
Vinny, well, put a collar on him, because it's the only way you're going to really keep tabs on what he's doing here. Wildcard fully folding away from that defense, bunkering in on site. They've cut their losses, and Knights, they still don't look 100% sure that there's no one in there, so that mute potentially taking away so much of the intel that they would usually have. Just clawing this round down to the minute mark with not much control from Knights.
A bomb has been located.
No, really not. They had no idea that Wildcard had just completely left that alone. So they've used utility and time to clear this. They're finally taking control. Diesel sneaking in to that vertical play for the logistics hole here. It's quite the bait, that vault. As soon as a Knights player goes to go through this, Diesel has them in his sights. Looks like Josh might be the unsuspecting death here. But no, he's actually run away from position, but still, Wildcard have all control needed. It's going to be on the Knights right now to try and find the opening here.
It just doesn't seem like it's going to happen. Emo Rin, he'll be the first to deny access. Sage, though, finds somewhat of a trade in amongst the midst of battle. And with Diesel down, it's looking a little more doable for Knights here. Dare I say it, they are going to claw this round back. There's only one on site. Knights swarm it and control everything they need to. 2 players remain. Vinny, in fact, is the last man for Wildcard. And unless he pulls out an unreal 1v4, we are going to another round, Raven.
Great display from the Knights to just explode onto site there. Wildcard could not maintain it. It's going to be tough for Vinny. There's a lot of angles to check here. Couldn't even get the first. It's Juicy to close it out. The Knights survive for one more round.
Deservedly so in that round, that's for sure. When push came to shove, Knights stand up. And, I mean, I would almost say somehow bring that back and force Wildcard back into that church defense, which, if I'm not mistaken, was flawlessly done. So,
yep.
It's not the greatest of journeys back, although it will be one to tell should they manage to do it. Vinny swapping the Kaid out for the Oryx. We are going to see a roam, ladies and gentlemen.
Attackers need to locate and
Yeah, they got the castle there as well, so of course this is definitely going to be a roam. Oryx is going to quickly make all these rotates on site. That's the beauty of Oryx, right? You just bust through these walls, and it is just unreal. It's got the bailiff as well to open those holes for the impact trick, it looked like, and he's going to head upstairs. Curious to see how this pays off for Wildcard. Deciding to maybe be a little more aggressive, because by not having the Kaid, they only have the mute for wall denial. And for hatches, that means they're just free game for these hard breaches. So that Habana can just go straight to work for the hatches, as long as they've got the map control to do so safely, of course.
That's the other side of it. Geo on the visual, for me, says possibly not so much. It's going to take a fair bit, or so you would think, for Knights to really flush this out. Then again, we do know Knights to be such a methodical team in that prep phase that allows them to actually turn into an explosive force to be reckoned with in that first minute of the round. And Vinny now setting up everything he's going to need for these later rounds, as Haywood wastes no time in opening up logistics. And Josh as well, look at that, straight into cash. Vinny needs to be cautious here.
Oh, just confidence and aggression from the Knights. Vinny is under so much pressure. He pulls out the bailiff. Not sure that was the play. Josh finds the double. Sage backs it up to get Diesel. Falling apart here for Wildcard. They've only got 2 left, Manic, and that's in the first minute.
Well, they may as well go for broke here, because this round is all but done and dusted. It's in the bed. Pat and Geo are now going to push together as Geo peels off after the kill comes through as confirmed. And that will allow Knights to, once again, take site control. Pat nearly catching the backside, but he is not going to have that rotate through kitchen hatch. In fact, he's going to have to come downstairs. Sage is down. The diffuser is currently being stuck, so it is only 2 players up that are trying to fight him at the moment. He could actually isolate some 1v1s here, and oh my word, Dino nearly gives him an opening back into the round, but it's not to be, as Knights, well, they almost simply dismiss that roam from Wildcard.
I feel like they've really woken up in these last 2 rounds. The Knights have just gone hard at it. And if it's finally taken them this long to light the fire, man, they really needed it a few rounds ago, because they're still facing this match point against them for Wildcard. 2 rounds left in the half for them to try and salvage this series. Wildcard are going to go to CCTV cash, which they also haven't lost yet. They won it in the second round of the half.
Attackers need to locate and defuse.
This is where we really expect a Wildcard to be shutting it out. It doesn't look like they're going to be pulling out any gimmick strats to try and close it out. No matter how enjoyable it is, this might just be the end of it. Even you were saying before that those bullet holes make for all sorts of nuisance when you're trying to burn open with the Maverick. So it'll give them just a little, maybe a 2-second buffer. And sometimes in the grand scheme of the round, that can actually really be quite an advantage. As outrageous as that may sound, but now into it. Knights again are going to have to confirm the last 2 rounds. This is literally 4 straight for them, just to push it to overtime for another chance at really taking this grand final all the way.
Alright, let's see what Juicy can do this time. He has struggled with this the last few attempts. Poor Juicy has struggled in general this series. I mean, I believe he ended map 1 on the donut. Unfortunately highlighted by Wildcard in their socials, I do say. So, see how he goes. He's going to take over the minute again to be able to get this trick open, but very important they achieve this, because if you don't get CCTV wall open, it makes this attack a lot harder. And of course, sometimes you can just straight dedicate to the construction take, but this is a lot safer, a lot simpler. Uh-oh.
That's like
There
a
we go.
macaroni and cheese artwork from your kid that you put on the fridge.
Oh.
Oh, hello. No,
They
you
wa-
hate to see it. It's been butched, but Knights, they still push on. Sage will be able to take down Diesel as Geo backs up. Knights, this is what we needed to see from them once more. They explode, and it doesn't look like Wildcard have an answer.
Jesus.
Macaroni and cheese aside, Knights are taking them to dinner. Oh!
Well, Vinny's eating too, apparently, Manic. He's going to push through in this 1v2 situation to try and save the map. Oh my gosh, that looked like it was going to be doable, but the Knights, they hang on not only to the round, but they're hanging on to this series, Manic. They are one round away from forcing us to overtime. We definitely, I would say comfortably, did not think this was going to happen.
Wow, they really made me eat my words right then, didn't they? I love to see it. I love to see it from Knights.
Attackers have located a bomb.
We'll see here the explosion. Once it eventually did come, it really turned the heat up. And you have to give full props to Knights. It's all good and well. What are you doing there, Vinny? Sorry. It's all good and well to make that call, but at the end of the day, you do have to hit those shots and you have to be on. Those ones are more important
Attackers
than
need
any
to
duel
locate
you
and
will
defuse the
encounter.
bomb.
And Wildcard are going to reattempt CCTV, which I'm trying to scroll back through my memory here, and I can't remember the last time I saw Wildcard reattempt a site, and that's just off my terrible goldfish-like memory, but they are definitely wanting to put this one to bed, Raven. They do not want to go to overtime.
They actually did a site repeat. Oh no, they didn't. You're right. They didn't do it on Coastline.
Thank
So,
God,
yeah.
that was really gonna be awful, wasn't it? I was gonna botch that completely.
I was quickly checking for you. What I was going to say is, I think Vinny's going to be kicking himself because if he had just pre-fired that cache CCTV doorway, he really would have just caught the Ash peeking through and that being GG. But not to be. Again, it's Siege. It's a matter of millimeters. Small decisions have big results. And right now, that small decision of the rush, for example, had a big result. He got the Knights that round, and maybe that is what the factor was for Wildcard to repeat this. Is they just say, you know what, they cheesed it, they can't do that again, we're ready for it. Now they're going to try and really take us on it.
And when push comes to shove, Pat, oh, surely I did. Oh, oh my word. If he had kept peeking that, potentially that's Juicy out of the round and a really important operator at that in the Maverick, as they're not going to use him to open that CCTV wall. Pat just firing out some warning shots here, alerting him of the position, but Joe's still up above as
Bomb
well.
located by attackers.
Does not look like they're going to be able to stop Maverick from going to work.
Dino has been heavily tagged by a gunfight somewhere as well, so that's going to make it really tricky for him in future engagements. Probably going to be a little bit more hesitant to engage anyway. Knights very spread. Juicy is going to rappel up to the CCTV wall, and if he is charged with opening this as well, given the amount of torch he has already used, he's going to have to be next to perfect for this.
I think so. Only 2 left here. He doesn't have much to play with. I don't think he's going to have enough in this counter. He is going to have to be spot on. And no, it's just enough for him to open that. They still do have Dino on that Habana. I don't know how many X-Kairos he's going to have left either. Oh my word, Juicy, does he have it? Oh!
He got
Juicy!
it.
He got it. Oh, I thought surely not.
Yeah.
And he'll even make
Nick of
work
time.
a little bit on the left.
In the nick of time. Got it open too. So it's now usable. Sage below with the verticals just misses the mark onto Vinny. People have been tagged but not taken out. Starting to get pretty intense here, man, because of course this could be either GG or overtime. Vinny gets tagged heavily in some shots there as Dino takes out Geo. Important position on the garage rafters that is now in the control of the Knights. They are surging with 30 seconds. They are close to taking this to overtime here, Matic.
Close. They're knocking on the doorstep. They still have to make it past Diesel, holding on top of that red stairs position. In fact, he'll be flushed out. Pat finding Sage. This makes things interesting. Can they get to Juicy in time? The C4 should be coming out any moment soon. No, Pat just had to try to fire through the bottom of the flooring. Vinny, he's making it back into this game. It's planted in a very awkward spot here for Wildcard to confirm. And Knights can just hold deep lines on this.
Yeah, Juicy running out to the best post-play position possible for this, which is the spawn over in Kennels. Knights have got to just stay patient as Diesel's trying to find a peak. Dino, speaking of patient, he downs one on the stairs. As another gets downed, Juicy gets a double for the round. Does leave it all up to Vinny, but he can't do it. It's closed out, and the Knights, Matic out of nowhere, they have pushed this to overtime.
Oh, what a storyline this is. We would never in any world have expected Knights to force this to overtime. God damn it, Pat. We nearly went flawless with the rehosts. I'm raging.
Oh, so close. So close.
That is just unbelievable from the Knights. Said it felt unattainable for, what, 4 rounds straight on their attacking side versus Wildcard, who we know to be an absolute nuisance when they're on that defense. But I'm left speechless as to what the Knights have been able to achieve in this. I was preparing to have a great speech about Wildcard at the end of the game about how they've stamped out any single opportunity, but my oh my, Knights are really making them work for it. And at this point, you have to say the momentum is completely in their favor.
Yeah, it is. They're just 4 rounds in a row. They got plants on all of them as well on top of that. So that just says a lot about the way that they have been able to do these attacks. Just the sheer aggression and confidence that they've had is just unreal. And I can't believe, the first 2 attacks that they attempted, Wildcard got a flawless round, right, on that first one. And the second one was near flawless as well. The Knights just looked done. They seriously did. I cannot believe that they've been able to just flick the switch. And here we are, overtime.
I mean, I'm not going to say that this is what we saw against Akami, but Knights were in a very similar situation on their Coastline map, which was map 2. Backs up against the wall, and look what happened there. I will remind you, they ended up winning 6 rounds straight to defeat Akami on Coastline. They then went to Oregon and beat them 7-1. And Oregon is the map we have coming up next. Granted, Wildcard and Akami are 2 different teams. Maybe there's something in this. Maybe there's something in this grand final that we could never have expected, Raven.
Yeah, I just thought of something too. You were talking about you were preparing your speech for Wildcard winning. You'd have to think that Wildcard were probably preparing for finishing the game, right? They were thinking, all right, 1 round, boys, we can wrap this up. And then it's GG. We can enjoy the rest of our Sunday. But now the Knights have surged. It's overtime. I think you can really catch a team off guard like that. And Wildcard are potentially facing having to play another whole map. And if the Knights are peaking at the right time, they could really take advantage of that. And before you know it, could be a bit of a scary situation here.
I just honestly didn't think that there was enough in the map when we headed to the second half for Knights to be able to bring it back. A 4-2 half, Wildcard get off and take the first 2 rounds. I did not think that Knights had enough really in the reserves to be able to bring this back, and they have really, really bashed that home. In fact, the way we're headed in overtime, it would not surprise me if Knights come out on top in this encounter. And if I'm not mistaken, this is Wildcard's pick, which means that Pittsburgh Knights should have the choice on what side they were going to head to should it go to overtime, correct?
I honestly don't remember the ruling. I can't remember if it's to do with the seeding or if it's to do with a coin flip, but...
Okay.
Either way, I don't think the sides have been particularly one-sided, where I would say it really matters either way. I mean, for example, one of the Knights' 4 round wins on their attacks was that rush plant.
Yeah.
So you could say a 3-3 half was maybe looking more likely for that second half, if you want to isolate the halves, that is. So I don't think either side would really be favored right now. Maybe the
Yep.
Knights might prefer attack because that's just where the momentum is. They've just done 4 attacks in a row quite strongly. So maybe that's what they would prefer. Yeah, we'll have to wait and see when we come back for what that actually, where that actually ends up.
And when you look at it's a very interesting point you make, because when you look at Pittsburgh Knights' second half, then, and you have a look at really just that, well, I say the last 4 rounds. The first round on that gym attack, they really played quite well. They bullied Wildcard offsite and then took it for their own. The second round, I feel like, was a little bit of a gimmicky one from Wildcard, and I'm sure that they'll regret that. It was the roam in basement that they went for. And then backing up off the end of that, it was the rush in CCTV that caught Wildcard just really tying their own shoelaces up. And that final round, I would really say that could have been one of the more convincing rounds we've seen from them. So, you know, it really is just showing what the Knights can bring if you give them an inch. You know, they will really take you all the way. So with that, we are going back down to the basement, and it looks like a lot more of a conservative lineup for Wildcard in this basement defense.
It is. I mean, last time we saw the Oryx out of Vinny. They had the castle for the classic assistance on the roam that you do see a lot for this site. So yeah, right now, looks like they might be looking to turtle on this one. They still haven't gotten the Kaid though, so not putting any hindrance on taking those hatches, which does open it up for Dino to be able to use the X-Kairos to clear things if they want to. So yeah, look, this is an interesting change from Wildcard, maybe really feeling that pressure from the Knights attacks and not wanting to risk losing bodies early on the roams.
Certainly, both rounds that they played down in the basement, I actually think they lost both of the openings. So, without a doubt, it will be something that they will want to tidy up and really, once again, stamp their authority on this round and lay to waste anything that Knights really try to achieve here. But once again, when you leave that top floor opening, you do allow for quite a lot of that vertical control, the vertical pressure. Last time, Hayward had fallen in kitchen with only the vertical lines in kitchen being opened. So this time, Knights will have a lot more for the post-plant situation, should it even need to get there.
And there's 2 or 3 C4s that are potentially in the pocket of Wildcard. One has now been used completely off the mark there. Just, if anything, is going to be helping Hayward's job. Pat tagged up a little bit from a frag grenade, it looked like, and Hayward's going to continue to do work on the floor here as they are looking to get kitchen hatch open. Vinny, though, he has something to say about it as he gets Sage on the opening pick. It's refragged perfectly by the Knights, not letting Wildcard get too ahead right now. And Hayward is going strong on the verticals. He gets Geo coming into that final minute. That is going to be the Knights with the man advantage. They are really, really pushing Wildcard right now.
Now, if you look at that, you say Hayward's done an incredible job, right? 2 kills. Even more so than that, Hayward denied them any opportunity to play with that impact trick. So Geo and Vinny were the only 2 operators that could deny it with those impact grenades. So that's done and dusted. It's open. They're going to go ahead and try to drop in, but Rin is going to be watching from blue. He'll tag up Hayward as he comes on in. Diesel's going to come from behind as well. You can see the blue outline. Hayward and Josh are left to try and pick up the pieces. They're not going to be allowed to do so. Wildcard with a much better round here in the first round of overtime.
The Knights just went a bit too quick there. I think it was a similar thing we saw from Wildcard in their attack half way back when they tried to push down the hatch. They just didn't have enough control. Rin, just getting that first pick was so crucial, and then there was no one left to watch the flank because they just started to go. The Knights had the man advantage, and they still had some time on the clock. Felt like they really could have done more with it, but back to familiar territory. It's Wildcard on match point.
For a 5th time in a row. Just as a, well, not technically it's a 5th round, I should say. I should clear that up. A 5th round that they have been on overtime ever since
Defenders, protect your bombs.
very early in that second half. In fact, I think it was round 8 onward they were in that driver's seat. So this time, Knights, if we're talking about familiar territory in Wildcard on match point, we are revisiting basement twice now. And Haywood will be bringing the Kaid to make those hatches just a little bit less of a an issue, although it looks like he'll be putting a bit of attention to Dirt. No, he's just baiting me out. Thanks, man.
5 seconds left.
Yep, baiting you out indeed. Looks like the Knights are not going to be roaming either on this defense. So also deciding they don't want to try and give any early picks off. Going back to a Church Arsenal defense for the Knights. They lost it in round 5 to Wildcard, and they won it in round 2. The 50-50 win-loss record on this for them. Doesn't present any comfort, but they are using the Kaid to electrify these hatches, which means you are going to have to clear them or use the Maverick, and obviously using Maverick in Kitchen is just no bueno, so you're going to have to try and clear that electric core with grenades or something.
Bueno indeed. Emorin very early on looking to take that contact into blue. He won't win out on the encounter. In fact, he won't even tag up any of the Knights players. It's just Sage there for the moment. Being very cautious of any drones up on the rafters. And Wildcard elsewhere will continue the maintenance on that first floor.
Aggressive position from Dino here in the hallway. Just looking to catch someone that might push to the bottom of the main stairs off guard. Right now, no one from Wildcard is looking to be in that position. Half the round gone. The verticals from Geo are going to be done quite swiftly with this buck, and that is really the difference here. But he's been down. Pat also is going to get tagged up, trying to use these Selma charges to open the hatch. Geo is going to at least be recovered, getting down in a safe position. HP damage, though, quite significant.
Kitchen hatch has been open. Juicy's pushed into Dirt Tunnel, and quite deep into Dirt Tunnel at that. Josh as well, dropping one of his goo mines halfway down just in case it falls apart. So
Attackers have recovered their diffuser.
now being spotted out there, Juicy can no longer take safe haven there. Some good drone intel now from Wildcard. 40 seconds, Raven. Things are starting to get a little bit more dicey for Knights.
Yep, they are. Josh back out of Dirt. He's going to go to AK Rax. Vinny looks like he wants to be able to take Dirt. He is going to go and contest that. Nope, decides to come back. Geo finally gets the opening pick onto Haywood. Wildcard, are they set to take this series, Mag? They've got 20 seconds to make this work.
Josh waiting for that initial contact. They still have that sideward pressure with Dino holding as well. He can't connect the shots completely. It is going to be the impact. 4 seconds left. Knights explode. Emorin will find a trade, but this is all coming down to the wire. Vinny, he can't get a hold of him. Eventually, he'll take him down. My word, Wildcard in a messy last round will confirm a second round consecutively in overtime. And they are your back-to-back ANZ champions, ladies and gentlemen, and unquestionably so.
Kings of the Oceanic region once again is Wildcard, and they will be taking a spot into the grand final for 6th Major in November. Knights did push them, though. They took that map to overtime in a map that has never boded well for the Knights against Wildcard. Felt like we might have been seeing an extra, but not to be. Wildcard take the series 3-0. Unreal performance from them for this whole season.
That is so. Only one map dropped in regular season as well as playoffs, which is a I mean, an effort that can never be overlooked. 6 maps in playoffs, 7 in regular season, and this is where we really lie. And I think that there is no question, no doubt in our mind that this was really always going to be the answer for our playoffs, but the prayers have been answered fully and quite quickly so by Wildcard.
Yeah, they have, and this is exactly where they want to be. They're going to be into that grand final for the major, and we've said it quite a lot now. They are the only team in Oceania that can really have a shot at 6 Invitational due to the fact they won SI points in August. So now they're looking for their second batch of points, and getting those will secure them a spot at 6 Invitational next year. Big stakes for them moving forward.
It is massive stakes because really that's where we set our eyes. Obviously, I want to keep it as close to this match as we can, but that really does put them in great stead for later in November, like you're saying, for those 6 invitational points. So very much what we needed to see from Wildcard, and they have delivered. Knights, on the other hand, geez, they made it close. They've really clawed that one back. 6-2 at one stage. Unreal. And we're actually going to hear from Dino straight after the match here, and we'll be able to get his raw thoughts. And what was an incredible comeback on map number 2, Dino. I've got to ask you, what is going through your head at 6-2 down on really map point for all of those rounds onwards?
Let's reset. We have nothing to lose. We have everything to gain. We just literally just sat down for a sec. We just said why we're losing. We tried to find out why, and then we changed the pace. And I guess it worked for 6 or 5 rounds to come back.
Yep. Raven?
Yeah, look, I was going to ask a similar thing, but maybe we'll talk about Coastline. I mean, obviously that was really where we were giving you guys your best chance. We thought that if you were going to take a map initially from Wildcard, it would be Coastline. Maybe are you able to give us some insight to where you guys really struggled on that one?
For sure, our defense. On Coastline, our attacks are pretty strong. It's just when I think we were 4-2 down when we went on the half, and it should have been at least 3-3 for us to try to win on attack. So I think that big lead that just screwed us up.
Now, I have to ask you a cheeky question that I'm sure Raven wanted to. In the interview of the last match, you mentioned the consulate game, you were hiding it, and then you banned it out straight away. Were you just being cheeky? Were you just playing mind games?
We tried, no, we weren't going to bring it for this game because there's no point. We already made it into the mini major. We're going to leave it for mini major. There's no point playing it yet.
That is actually, that is a very fair point. Raven, did you have any final questions?
No, but I called that as well. When we saw it banned, I said maybe they're just going to bank it up for the major, and then everyone laughed like, oh, sure, they're going to bait it out. But good to hear that, man. But I think overall you guys have done great this season. Still, Wildcard are the hurdle for you guys to overcome. You've got one more opportunity for the major. How are you feeling having the rematch for Okami? I guess if we look forward to that, you played them already today. You will have to beat them to be able to get a chance at Wildcard again.
I think we have a big chance of beating them because we've done so much already. We've just a new player, Sajan. He just joined recently, and I feel like over this little break, we're gonna fix all the little mistakes that's like causing us the matches, and hopefully we come back a lot stronger and we hopefully upset Wildcard.
Well, that would be a sight to see, and we're all looking forward to it, Dino. Congratulations on, of course, making it to the grand final, but we will see you in November, so it's not too far away at all. Really, just take care, mate.
Thank you very much. Have a great night. It's
done in 2, but still, again, for the consulate hiding, I kind of just wanted to have a bit of fun with that. I wanted to hear an excuse, but I do think that it is obviously something that's come the major, we are definitely going to want to keep our eyes on, because whether they go to pick it or ban it again, maybe they're just playing with us, Raven. Maybe Dino's just pulling our leg.
Yeah, look, who knows? Maybe he is. But they still sound like they're in high spirits, and I think he really nailed it with Coastline. They just could not get enough defenses to give them the shot to be able to close that map out. They had to be totally flawless, essentially, in their attack half, which just can be difficult no matter how strong your attacks are, or no matter how strong you are in either side with a half. And then they had a great shot with Clubhouse. I think you would almost say that this felt closer for them than previous attempts against Wildcard. You know, if a few rounds just go their way on Coastline, it felt like there would have been a world where they win that. And then maybe they had more confidence on Clubhouse, and you saw they pushed it to overtime as it was. Maybe they would have been able to take that one as well. So I'm really excited to see a repeat of this potentially at the major.
There's certainly a lot to be questioned on that aspect of the performance, but there is one person we'd like to hear from, and that is Silex. Once again, crowned the Kings of ANZ. Congratulations, Silex. Before we get into all the, celebrations, I want to ask something very specific, which is that rush on Coastline round 1. Were you guys premeditating that, or was that a decision made in the server pretty much on the dime?
It's always dependent on who we're playing and how they're setting up. So we need prior intel to know if we can rush or not. Obviously, we're going to need to drone out to see if all those conditions are met, and if we think we can rush, we'll do it.
Yeah.
Right.
Look, on Clubhouse, come round 8, you guys were up 6-2, and then we saw this absolute resurgence from the Knights. What was going through the guys at that time? Had they started to potentially write the game off at that stage, or was there something that switched within the team that allowed the Knights to get back into it?
Firstly, our comms are always going to be quite calm. We're level-headed. We maintain as much composure as we can. We don't want to let tilt get to us, because that's just going to ultimately impact the entire team. So if one person is having just an off moment or something, then needs to cool down, make sure it's not going to influence the rest of the boys. The Knights played really well with their attack rounds. Usually we're able to kind of predict what's going to happen and come out with the rounds that way. But this time we had a couple of new things we wanted to try. Didn't quite work out. They got opening frags. They played really well. So once we got into overtime, we went back to something that was more tried and true. So yeah.
It did kind of seem like it in this. I was going to actually ask about overtime, but you've kind of clarified that, which is it seemed like it was the double down from Wildcard that we've seen so many times. So I think that's kind of all we wanted to get out of you, Raven. Was there any final questions?
No, I'm all good. I think it's all clear cut. Yep.
Okay, beautiful. Well, we'll keep it short and sweet, Silex, as we did last night, because at the end of the day, you guys are once again the champions of ANZ. So from all of us here, we congratulate you, as we were almost expecting from the get-go.
Awesome. Thanks for the cast, guys.
And that really concludes it. Hey.
Unreal. I can't believe we're here already. It just it was such a quick season, and then even playoffs, it feels like we only just started. But it's been unreal.
Talking about playoffs just starting, this is the full picture painted for you at home, ladies and gentlemen. If you've joined us from Friday all the way through until now, we appreciate you a lot, and we hope that you've enjoyed what has been a wild ride. But once more, we see the flawless run from Wildcard in that upper bracket and closing it out in 3-0 fashion in the grand final. It's what we're coming to expect from this roster and this team in general. You don't want to take away the teams along the way, Akami and LFO, that really looked red hot coming into it. So there's definitely some great takeaways after this.
Yeah, there is. Wildcard, again, I've said it a few times, when you look at brackets like this, you'll see that they didn't lose a map, but they were challenged on a lot of different occasions. Akami took them to overtime on a map there in the semifinals. The Knights really struggled in the winners final, but I tell you what, in that BO5, like we've said, it felt like just a few rounds dictated whether this could have gone a lot deeper. So I would definitely be excited for a potential rematch in the future. And Okami, I'm sure, are keen for a rematch on the Knights, because they felt like they had that one in the bag after map 1 earlier.
Yeah, and that's something that I'm sure they will go back, they'll look at, and they'll try to fix, because the major's only just around the corner for the Oceanic region. So there's a lot coming up for those three teams in particular that you've just highlighted, the Pittsburgh Knights, Akami, and Wildcard. But definitely, I think that there's a real summary, which has just been this season, I think has shocked a lot of people, Raven.
Yeah, I'm sure it has. There's been some upsets all over the place. The region has shown that it has gotten a lot closer. And while the same teams seem like they're the ones that are winning, again, it is not like they're being unchallenged. And there have been upsets. I think the biggest story coming out of playoffs was LFO securing themselves a spot in top 4, which they weren't able to do in 6 Masters. So I think their story is very exciting leading into 2021.
It certainly is. A lot of storylines heading into 2021, ladies and gentlemen. That will conclude everything for us here. Only now, though. We've got the 6th major in November coming up for the Oceanic region. That'll start on the 26th of November. So make sure you pencil that into your diary. You stay up to date with all the latest updates. And we will see you just around the corner. Take care.